Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. Today we will see what if Naruto and Rhea love. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. Time seemed to pass slowly around the area. The air is filled with blood and agony. The surrounding area is filled with 5 feet craters, trees completely destroyed. In the distance, there stands a monstrous figure with one huge eye and razor-sharp teeth. The eye has multiple Sharingan pupils. But the most prominent feature of this creature is its 10 tails. This creature was the 10-tailed beast, the most powerful demon to exist in the ninja world. Its power knew no limits and was thought to be invincible, but that changed when one man came across the demon. That man was the Sage of the 6 Paths, the father of all ninja. In top of the 10 tails head stand 2 very recognized ninja, Obito Uchiha and Madara Uchiha. The former was previously thought to have died in the Third Shinobi World War, but was revived by an elderly Madara Uchiha before his death. Obito planned to revive the 10 tails and seal it in himself, making him its Jinchuriki. However, the beast is incomplete as it is missing 2 tailed beasts, the 8 tails and the 9 tails. The 2 are currently sealed into their Jinchuriki, Killer Bee of the Hidden Cloud Village and Naruto Uzumaki of the Hidden Leaf Village. The former and the latter are currently 40 yards away from their enemies with the allied shinobi forces. Naruto's attire changed when he transformed into his tailed beast mode, a form he gained after he and Kurama, the Nine Tails' true name, began to work together and diminished the animosity between them. The hero of the Hidden Leaf was transferring Kurama's chakra to the shinobi forces via shadow clones and the chakra transfer technique. Now the entire force gained a tailless version 1 chakra cloak, similar to a Jinchuriki's. Naruto looks at the 10 tails with the shinobi force behind him, ready to fight. Attack! Everyone followed the blonde Jinchuriki who readied twin Rasen Shuriken in his hands. Shikamaru and the Nara clan bind the 10 tails movements with shadow possession jutsu with Choji and his fellow clansmen restricting the beast's arms. Obito commanded the beast to defend with its tails, blocking the shinobi's way. I don't think so. Naruto with Lee on his right jumped into the air and threw his first Rasen Shuriken, destroying the first 5 tails and was about to throw his second, but he felt a crack and sharp pain. What? He looked at his left shoulder. That's right. It's dislocated from that last attack. He see Hinata behind him. Gentle fist. Hinata struck Naruto's shoulder, putting it back into place. Thanks, Hinata. Naruto launched his second Rasen Shuriken at Obito while Lee jumped higher, using Guy to propel himself. Kick some butt, Lee. The green beast of the leaf did that as he roundhouse kicked Madara with great force, shattering his midsection while the Rasen Shuriken made its way at Obito. The Uchiha phased his stomach, making the chakra shuriken pass through him with no harm, at least that what he though. Your attack failed on me, Uzumaki. Naruto smirked. Is that so? Look behind you. The Uchiha looked behind to see the link between him, Madara, and the 10 tails is severed. Madara quickly regenerated and he and Obito jumped off the beast's head, landing on the ground. Soon the beast was overrun with the shinobi forces attacking it with their individual techniques. Naruto landed on the ground, standing 25 yards away from the 2 Uchihas. You 2 are no longer controlling the 10 tails. It's over, stated Naruto firmly, slowly getting into a stance. It's not over until you're dead. Obito getting a stance as well did Madara, readying his weapon in a reverse grip. Naruto was about to charge at them when a shadow loomed over the trio. The shinobi looked up to see a foot looking to smash them and jumped backwards away to see the foot smash the spot he and the Uchihas previously were. What the? The sage saw the 10 tails' eyes staring at him with its mouth slightly open, drooling. That was a sight he won't forget for a while. Ew, that's gross. Naruto shuddered slightly as he watched his fellow ninja attack the beast, not knowing Obito phased out of the ground behind him to strike. Obito extended his right arm, attempting to suck Naruto into his Kamui dimension. As soon he made contact with the young blonde, Obito thought one thing. Victory is mine. Suddenly, the young Uzumaki disappeared, shocking the Uchiha. Where did he go now? He waited while using his eyes to search for his enemy until he got a hit. He turned around to see the Jinchuriki with a readied Rasengan. Rasengan. Naruto thrust his signature jutsu as he got into close range of the madman, but expectantly his attack passed through him. Obito put his right hand on the blonde's left shoulder, attempting to suck him with his kamui, but Naruto quickly used his speed, once again, to escape the attempt. The Uzumaki reappeared 40 yards away from Obito, analyzing his next plan of attack. Okay, things are going a little easy, now that he and Madara are no longer in control of the 10 tails. I'll try to catch him off guard with my speed. That won't work. Naruto recognized the voice when he heard it. Kurama, what do you mean it won't work? You've already tried that just now and look at the result. He knew where you were going to appear and he phased through your attack. You need to come up with an unpredictable attack. Naruto thought over Kurama's observation and knew his partner was right. He does need to think of a plan to catch Obito and Madara off guard, speaking of which. Wait a minute, where's Madara? Naruto realized the elder Uchiha was nowhere in sight. He searched for his other enemy and prepared himself for an attack at any time. The sage knew the elder Uchiha was no pushover when he used one of the first Hokage's wood-styled techniques and he deflected his mini-tailed beast ball. Come on, where is this guy? You're not using your ability to find him. Naruto was confused at this. What ability? The fox sweat dropped at this and pinched his nose bridge. Your negative emotion sensing ability can detect hatred, malice and other negative thoughts. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Naruto chuckled a little. Kurama sighed. Sometimes I wonder if there's a limit to your denseness. Hey, I'm not that dense. Stop arguing with me and focus on the battle, Naruto. That statement reminded the blonde that he is on a battlefield, facing 2 madmen and the most powerful demon. He closed his eyes and focused on the emotions, searching for Madara. Moments later, his eyes opened suddenly as he turned to his left and saw the undead Uchiha with a stretched right arm pointed at him. Oh crap, universal pull. Naruto felt himself being pulled by an invisible force, heading towards Madara. Naruto gritted his teeth. Damn that Rinnegan. The sage quickly countered by creating a chakra arm from his shroud and commanded the arm to grip the ground, stopping himself. A moment later, the jutsu wore out and Naruto dispelled the arm and landed on the ground. I must say you impress me, Jinchuriki. I guess I should have expected that from someone distantly related to the Senju clan. Madara with displeasure in his tone. I guess you shouldn't underestimate your opponents, despite of their age. Naruto remarked. Madara smirked at this, then looked to his right to Opshio beside him, and looked back at the boy. You can't beat us. No matter how hard you fight, you will lose. Naruto chuckled. I'll keep fighting until the both of you are gone. Opshio laughed a little at the statement. You forgot about one more person. Naruto had a puzzled face. And who's that? His answer was given when one of the tails of the towering demon is already on top of him. Crap, a shockwave occurred followed by dust covering the area where the whiskered ninja was standing. Soon the dust cloud cleared revealing the tail smashed into the ground or so it seems. The dust cleared under the tail, revealing the leaf shinobi with both of his arms outstretched overhead, carrying the tail. He was in a 5-foot crater with spider cracks emitting from the edges. Damn, this thing is heavy. Naruto complained about the weight of the tail. He felt his arms and legs slowly starting to burn despite being in tailed beast mode. Naruto, look out. He heard the fox's warning. The sage looked forward to see the Uchihas sprinting towards him, ready to attack. Damn, my arms are occupied at the moment right now. Obito and Madara got within 5 yards within their enemy with one thought in their minds. You're dead. Suddenly, 2 certain female ninja in version 1 cloaks appeared on top of the tail and jumped into front of the Uchiha's way. Cherry Blossom's punch. Gentle fist. Twin lion fists. Naruto smiled when he recognized the names. Sakura, Hinata. The 2 ninja quickly sidestepped out of the way, causing the female duo to miss. The hate-filled men leapt backwards, getting 15 yards away from the trio. Naruto chuckled. Nice to see you girls stop by. He grunted as he tries to comfort his arms from the weight. Huh, can't let you have all the fun. Sakura remarked, looking at her knuckle-headed friend. She couldn't believe that the man she's seeing is completely different from the boy she met 2 years ago and now she's fighting to keep him safe. Hey, mind if we join you? Shouted a voice. Sakura and Hinata, except Naruto who was little occupied, looked and saw the rest of the Konoha 11, in their version 1 chakra cloaks, on the tail. They jumped down and landed next to the 2 Kunoichi, surprising Naruto. Guys, what are you doing here? Really? You're asking us that? Shikamaru sighed. We're here to help you beat these guys. Choji bumped his fist into his opened left palm. The rest nodded with the statement and Naruto sighed. Then the group heard chuckling and looked at Obito, who had a smirk on his face. You really think you and your pathetic friends will stop us now? You really are a fool, Naruto. Huh, like I said to Madara. You shouldn't underestimate your opponent, despite the age. The Konoha 11 smirked and nodded in agreement and got into their respective fighting stances. You Leaf Ninja are really starting to annoy me. I'll finish all of you now. Madara finished doing a hand sign. Naruto grunted, focusing all of his strength into his arms and through the tail. This action shocked his friends as they watched the tail pass over them, heading towards the Uchihas. Damn that brat. Obito gritted his teeth as he and the elder Uchiha disappeared, dodging the tail. The impact created another shockwave, causing some of the Konoha 11 to stumble. Everyone looked at Naruto with surprised faces. What? Naruto puzzled. Choji chuckled. You really are the strongest of all of us, literally. The blonde chuckled. Thanks, but we need to focus now, Choji. Our friends are back. Naruto pointed his finger at the tail. Everyone looked to see Obito and Madara standing there, with the latter with the same hand sign and now the former performing the sequence of hand signs until he stopped at the same sign. Now where were we? Oh yes, I remember, we're going to destroy you. The young shinobi group got ready to anticipate whatever their enemies are going to throw at them. Ready? Ready. Fire style. Dragon flame jut. The duo stopped as they saw blood spurt out of nowhere and Obito felt pain in his stomach. They looked down to see a huge claw and looked at the corner of their eye to look the 10 tails, staring at them emotionless. What? Asked Obito weakly, spitting out blood from his mouth. It must think we're its enemies. I can't believe I let my guard down around that demon. Madara attempted to move since he'll just regenerate his body, but he couldn't move at all. Why can't I move? Madara was confused by the occurrence. Meanwhile, the Konoha 11 was trying to process what just happened with Naruto and his partner trying to make the most sense. Why did the 10 tails attack them? I thought it was fighting alongside with them. Kurama, any theories? None so far, but I fear something is going to happen. So keep your guard up. Right, stand by in case we need to go full-tailed beast mode. Understood. Naruto ended the conversation and continued to stare at the 10 tails who brought the 2 Uchihas near its face. He heard Madara ordering the beast to release them but to no prevail. Release us. Madara barked another order. You are not in command here, mortal. Everyone's eyes widened, including Madara and Obito. It can talk? The Konoha 11 exclaimed. Of course it can talk. What did you expect it to be? A mute? Remarked Kurama with Naruto's sweat dropped at this. Why did you attack us? Asked Obito weakly. The 10 tails looked at him. I have plans of my own and I will not allow any mortals to control me. I'll rule this world again with no one to stop me this time. Everyone shuddered at the voice of the demon, feeling the demonic energy it's emitting. Madara and Obito looked at each other and gave each other a subtle nod and looked at the 10 tails. They lift their right arms, but Obito had difficulty due to the claw in his stomach. Shinra Tensai. The force of the powerful jutsu collided with the demon's face, creating a shockwave and a dust cloud. Naruto felt the attack was at its full power. The Konoha 11 widened their eyes at the notion and had one thought in their minds. Did it work? They got their answer when the dust cleared, revealing the demon still holding the Uchihas captive. The 2 megalomaniacs' eyes widen when they see the 10 tails didn't appear to be fazed by their coordinated attack. What? It doesn't even have a scratch, asked Madara. The last time I've encountered that attack was when I fought that cursed sage of the 6 paths and the attack you 2 threw at me. That's nothing compared to that mortal's attack. Madara and Obito were shocked as they're told that their current power was not comparable to their ancestors. The latter soon spit out more blood as he's slowly dying. The 10 tails scoffed. You 2 are pathetic. Thought that if you can control me, even briefly, you can rule the world and nothing can touch you. Now, allow me to dispose of you too. Obito widened his eyes as the demon opened his mouth, saliva dripping. Then the latter saw dark energy entering the beast's mouth while, at the same time, he was feeling a lot weaker than he did before and was wondering why. Unless, the Uchiha looked at his stomach to see the dark energy traveling from him, up along the beast's arm and into its mouth. No, Obito said weakly as he realized it's his chakra. The 10 tails continued devouring the mortal's chakra until the said latter's body started to decay. Soon the body of Obito Uchiha was gone, turned into dust. Madara and the Konoha 11, plus the shinobi forces, were appalled by the display of inhumane nature. Then the 10 tails turned to the elder Uchiha who realized it's his turn. "You can't kill me. I'll just regenerate since I'm already dead," said Madara arrogantly. The 10 tails smirked at this, which worried the shinobi. "Is that so? Then I'll make you there's no trace of your presence anywhere. Not only I devoured your fellow clansman's chakra, I devoured his soul." Madara felt fear for the first time in a long time when he heard of the revelation. Then he felt his chakra being pulled from his body. Soon his eyes turned blank, followed by his body being disintegrated into dust. Naruto couldn't believe his eyes when he saw what happened. His enemies, two of the most powerful and toughest shinobi he ever faced, was defeated and gone forever. He gulped when the demon set its eye upon him and his friends. "Guys, get ready. I have a feeling this is going to get a lot more difficult," Naruto stated after getting into a stance. So did his friends. "Kurama, we need to go all out and push our limits farther than before." "I know." The fox growled at the notion. The 10 tails was about to speak, but he heard a man called out its name and turned to face the shinobi forces. "Come on, everyone. Bombard it with every jutsu you know," shouted a Nara clansman. "Right," replied the entire forces. They attacked the 10 tails with every fire style, water style, earth style, wind style and lightning style offensive jutsu in their arsenal, while in the version 1 chakra cloaks surrounding their bodies. The multi-tailed beast grunted in response from the contact by the coordinated attacks, which created a huge dust cloud, covering the demon. The barrage kept on going for a few minutes, surprising the Konoha 11. "Do you think they can land a scratch on him?" asked Ino. "Perhaps. I mean, they're unleashing everything they got and there's no way even that beast can't leave unharmed," replied Kiba. Shikamaru, Naruto, and Kurama thought otherwise and knew that the power boost they have isn't enough. Finally the forces ended their barrage with the chakra cloaks dissipated, ending empowered state. All of the shinobi felt immediate exhaustion and wobbled a bit, then fell on their knees, panting heavily but had smirks on their faces, thinking that they've won. The dust cloud was slowly dissipating to the point where a huge shadow appeared, shocking everyone excluding the Uzumaki, Nara, and Kurama. The cloud was blown away by the wind, revealing the intimidating beast who didn't look fazed by the barrage and had a bored expression on its face. "No way. There's not one scratch on him," exclaimed a shinobi with fear on his face. The 10 tails then looked at the alliance and laughed a bit, making everyone shuddered, and after it stopped, he opened its mouth, gathering black and blue chakra and condensing it into a ball. Everyone's eyes widened when they realized it's another tailed beast bomb. Naruto jumped in front of his friends, crossing his arms. "Guys, get ready." The Konoha 11 complied and readied themselves for what's next. "Kurama, we need to go full-tailed beast mode now." But they were too late to react or transform. The 10 tails finished gathering enough chakra and prepared to attack the annoying threat. "Farewell, pests." He unleashed the bomb, the chakra beam making its way to its targets who are stunned to do anything. The contact created an enormous dust cloud and a huge shockwave. The dust cloud soon dissipated again, revealing a huge trench-like crater that looked endless. The 10 tails chuckled at his work, then looked at the young shinobi group, smirking at them. "I will kill you next, but not before I take what's mine." He pointed his claw at Naruto. "You and that other Jinchuriki have the last remaining parts of chakra. I will tear them apart from you, and when I absorb them, I will be complete." The Konoha 11 glared at the demon, despite their fear, and got into their fighting stances. "That's so cute, you fighting me. There's nothing you can do to hurt me. I'm Invichi. Shut your trap," exclaimed a pissed Naruto with clenched fists. His friends looked at their blonde friend, shocked by the latter's action, and felt fear once again as they stared at the beast. The demon then chuckled after a few moments and stared at Naruto. "No one has defied me since that cursed sage. You remind me of him, both your appearance and spirit. I will crush that." After that, he charged at the shinobi group who were surprised by the demon's speed despite its size. As the 10 tails was near them, he felt a sharp punch to the face and was sent skidding the ground, putting great distance between him and its targets. He looked for the one who punched him and saw the 8 tails towering the shinobi and smirked. You actually caught me off guard there, but I assure you, that won't happen again. Naruto looked up at B and smiled. Finally recovered your strength, huh? He received a nod from his fellow Jinchuriki, then looked at his friends. Guys, it's been an honor fighting alongside you and having you guys as my friends. I don't regret that and I never will. Everyone smiled and some of them had tears in their eyes, but quickly wiped them off. We're glad you're in our lives and we don't regret it, said Sakura with everyone nodding in agreement. Naruto nodded back and turned to face the 10 tails. Okay, 10 tails. You want to rip out Gyuki and Kurama from our bodies? You'll have to take them by force. With that, Naruto went into his full-tailed beast mode, his shroud enlarging into Kurama's overall form with the same seal around it and became translucent. The Konoha 11 are in awe as they're on top of the fox with Sakura noticing Naruto inside the fox's head. Naruto and Kurama looked at Gyuki and B who looked back at them, then looked at the 10 tails. Very well, then. I prefer to do the hard way, anyway. The 10 tails charged and so did the 2 Jinchuriki. The Jinchuriki, Kurama, Gyuki and the Konoha 11 yelled as they prepared to fight to the death. 10 minutes later, Arg! Exclaimed Naruto as he landed on the ground hard. He was lying in a 10-foot crater and he opened his eyes slowly, feeling pain all over his body with multiple bruises and scratches everywhere. Failed to notice that he's no longer in tailed beast mode, the sage slowly got up, ignoring the immense pain and walked out of the crater, stumbling as he got out and looked at the sight that appalled him. His friends' bodies laid on the ground with pools of blood surrounding each one of them. Naruto had terror in his eyes as he stares at them, then looked to see the 10 tails 30 yards away, devouring Gyuki from B's body soon his chakra. Nope, Killer B, said Naruto weakly as the rapping ninja was no more and the demon looks at Naruto. See what happens to those who defy me. They die. You and your friends chose this and now you must pay the consequences and your payment will be the last bit of my chakra inside you. Naruto gritted his teeth as the towering demon gets closer to him. He remembers the last 10 minutes of combat, he, Kurama and their fellow comrades charging the demon. Both sides colliding, fighting tooth and nail with the last remaining shinobi forces pushed to their limits. They'd thrown everything they got and it still wasn't enough, even with the link between Kurama, Naruto and the Konoha 11. The sage was panting heavily as the 10 tails stopped in front of him, 15 yards away and towering him, grinning at him. Don't feel so bad, pest. I'll make your death quick and painless. Naruto clenched his fists tightly to the point of making them bleed and glared at the 10 tails. Kurama, Naruto, replied the fox. What do you say we go out with a bang? Asked Naruto, making his partner smirk. You bet, brat, the fox said, making his Jinchuriki smirk as well. The 10 tails caught this and asked, why you're smirking when you are about to die? Because I have no regrets, Naruto transformed into his tailed beast mode for one final time, and I won't stop fighting. The Jinchuriki outstretched his right arm overhead and started channeling chakra into his palm. The chakra soon turned into a large shuriken with an orb in the center and it gave a loud bell-like screech. This is my final technique. Wind style. Rasen Shuriken. The 10 tails was mildly impressed by the mortal's stature and fighting to the death. The demon smirked at this and said, very well. I was going to rip my chakra from your body, but I guess I could wait for a while for it to regenerate. Farewell, Jinchuriki. The beast opened and channeled its chakra in front of its mouth, preparing another tailed beast ball. Naruto responded by putting all of his and Kurama's strengths into the jutsu, making larger than before. The two techniques was affecting the area, making the ground shake, rocks floating in mid-air and spider cracks in the ground near them. Kurama, said Naruto. Yes, Naruto? Asked the tailed beast. I'm glad you became my friend and I don't regret it, replied the whiskered ninja, getting a growl from the fox. So am I, Naruto. So am I, replied Kurama. The two beings felt their techniques ready and stared at each other. Farewell, pest. The 10 tails unleashed the bomb, heading at its next target. Naruto gritted his teeth and with one last cry of exertion, he threw the shuriken at the incoming jutsu with the shinobi exiting out of tailed beast mode. The bomb and Rasen Shuriken collided with the latter jutsu expanded widely upon impact. The shuriken held on for a few minutes until the bomb blew through it, heading towards the Jinchuriki. "Goodbye, Kurama," said Naruto as the bomb got closer. "Bye, Naruto Uzumaki," replied Kurama sadly as he can't believe that he's about to lose his only friend. The young Uzumaki closed his eyes, ready for the impact. Unbeknownst to the shinobi, strange lights were swirling around his body. Soon the light consumed him and shot upwards to the sky. The demon's jutsu created another shockwave and another huge dust cloud as it made contact with the ground and incinerated the Konoha 11's bodies. The 10 Tails was laughing madly as the cloud was blown away by a hard wind. "Now, no one can stop my rain this time." The demon continued to laugh as the last defense was gone, or so he thought. Unknown realm. Naruto waited for the bomb to make contact with his body, but it didn't come. He opened his eyes to find himself in a strange white room that seemed to go on for miles with nothing in sight. Where am I?" asked Naruto to himself. "Naruto," said a voice. The shinobi turned around and his eyes widened when he saw his partner, Kurama, towering over him. "Kurama, what are you doing here? What am I doing here?" Naruto asked his partner, starting to panic. Kurama's eyes widened when he recognized the place they're currently in when he looked at the floor. 2 circles with symbols around them and he finds himself sitting in one of them. "Naruto, I know where we are. We're in." The fox was cut off as his Jinchuriki was panicking around the room, making him sweat dropped and irritated. "Will you stop that and listen to me?" commanded Kurama, making the blonde stop with the beast pinching his nose bridge, sighing. "Okay, so you know where we are. What is this place?" The tailed beast was about to respond but he gasped and his eyes widened when he looked behind his Jinchuriki, who caught the expression. "Kurama, what is it?" He received no answer and turned around to find a man standing in the center of the circle. He had short light-colored hair that spiked up in the front with 2 distinctive pieces of his hair resembling horns. He was wearing a full-length cloak with a high collar, revealing a necklace of 6 red magatama, and in the back of the collar, it had a stylized rinnegan with 9 magatama in 3 rows beneath it. But the most prominent characteristic is the rinnegan in his eyes. Naruto widened his eyes as he realized the man in front of him is the one who defeated the 10 Tails generations before. The Sage O of the 6 Paths? Am I hallucinating, Kurama? "No, Naruto. It's him," replied Kurama, still in shock. The sage chuckled and smiled at the two. "I'm very glad that the young generation knows your name, Kurama, and I'm even more grateful that it is one of my descendants who knows it," said the wise sage, shocking Naruto. "Wait, I'm your descendant?" asked Naruto. Kurama sighed. "Naruto, remember your conversation with your mother." The young sage thought back and remembered that his clan, the Uzumaki clan, are distant blood relatives to the Senju clan, who in turn, are direct descendants of the sage. "Oh, yeah, I remember. Cool, I'm related to the sage of the 6 Paths," exclaimed Naruto, grinning madly. The elder sage smiled at his descendant's action and proud that he was the one who led to the tailed beasts to the right path. The smile on the elder ninja turned serious, catching both Naruto and Kurama's attention. "Sage, old man, I must tell you the reason why I brought you two here," said the sage. Naruto then remembered about his friends at the battlefield and the 10 Tails tailed beast bomb's trajectory at them. "You're the one who brought me here? Why didn't you bring my friends along with me?" asked Naruto angrily, shocking the duo. "Why didn't you let me die alongside them?" "Naruto!" exclaimed Kurama, making the blonde flinched a little. The sage held his hand. "Kurama, it is all right. He's upset and I understand his anger." Naruto was panting heavy for a few minutes until he calmed down and looked at the sage. "Can you tell us why you brought us here?" The god of shinobi nodded and proceeded. "I summoned you and Kurama here to tell you the way to spilk the 10 Tails chakra and rescue the other tailed beasts and end the demon's wrath." This revelation shocked Naruto, even Kurama, to their core. Immediately, the Jinchuriki was to ask the question. How can we stop the 10 Tails? Asked the young blonde sage. The sage of the 6 Paths explained. "When I defeated the 10 Tails, I used 4 mystical items that helped me to split the 10 Tails chakra into the tailed beasts. After I finished splitting the chakra, I sent the items to 4 different worlds that I traveled to years before my death, in case the 10 Tails revived." Naruto couldn't believe his ears when he heard this, and he bet his partner is going through the same process. "Okay, point us to the right direction and Kurama and I can retrieve them." The sage shook his head, confusing the blonde. You disagree? Why? Despite of your current strength, you are not strong enough to defeat the guardians that I assigned to protect the keys, replied the first shinobi. Naruto frowned at this observation and hung his head down. However, this caught Naruto's attention and he looked up at the elder sage. I can train you to become stronger, to the point that you might equal or even exceed my strength. Naruto fell down in anime style when he was offered the opportunity to train by the first shinobi. He quickly got up and said, "What are we waiting for? Let's get this starting," said Naruto happily, earning chuckles from the six paths and Kurama. The duo looked at each other, smiling at each other. It's good to see you again, Kurama. Back at you, old man. After calming the young blonde ninja, the trio went through a door that the sage of the six paths summoned. Naruto was excited for the training and had one thought in his mind. We'll meet again, 10 tails, and when that time comes, Kurama and I will beat you. 6 months passed by since the young Uzumaki accepted training from his distant blood ancestor, the sage of the six paths, along with his tailed beast partner. The training was severely intense, with one session being more excruciating than the one previous, but it was worth it. Naruto felt his power increase after every training session and was proud of himself and his partner. The Jinchuriki and the tailed beast's bond became stronger as they trained together under the older sage's tutelage. Of course they bicker at each other time to time and get on each other's nerves, much to the sage's amusement, but that's how partners are. The trio resided in the Six Paths estate, a large house that could fit 10 families, 3 kitchen, 2 swimming pools in the back, and lastly a 50-acre training ground with a forge and a blacksmith to create weapons. The estate was a gift from their deities, Kami and Shinigami, to the sage for his heroic deed of defeating the 10 tails. When Naruto first arrived at the palace-like estate, his distant blood relatives, the Senju clan including the Senju clan ancestor, greeted him. He was happy to finally meet the powerful clan who founded his home village, Konoha, and set the standards that kept the village alive for generations. The sage told his young descendant that there will be a final test to see how far he has come and if he's strong, powerful enough to start the journey for the 4 sealing keys. Naruto commented that he'd passed the test with no sweat. That time has come. Training grounds, sage's estate. The training ground was meant to endure the toughest and most powerful attacks, but when Naruto Uzumaki battles, all bets are off. There are multiple craters that 20 feet in depth, with smoke emitting from them and lightning seem to fill the atmosphere. The entire Senju clan was watching the boy battling their ancestor with satisfaction that the Uzumaki clan is just as strong as them, if not stronger. An explosion occurred with smoke filling the area. 2 figures sprinted into the smoke from opposite, soon followed by clashes of metal and sparks were seen. Suddenly one of the figures leapt up into air, getting out of the smoke, revealed to be the young sage. He was no longer wearing his orange jumpsuit and changed his attire to standard leaf ninja attire, keeping only his black headband with the leaf symbol engraved metal plate attached to it, and was covered with scratches and bruises. The young Jinchuriki looked to see the smoke cleared by the wind, revealing his opponent, the sage with scratches on his attire only. The elder ninja made hand signs, ending with both of his hands clamped together. Water style. Liquid bullet. He exhaled a highly pressurized water bullet at the young sage. Okay then, Naruto clamped his hands, channeling chakra in his mouth. Wind style. Air bullet. He exhaled a highly pressurized air bullet at the incoming water bullet. The contrasting element attacks collided, causing the water to disperse and rain upon the training-turned battleground and estate. The blonde ninja was still high in the air when the 6 paths rapidly created hand signs, making the boy's eyes widen when he recognized the jutsu. Oh, boy, I'm still too high. Better come with something fast, whispered Naruto to himself. The sage unleashed his attack. Fire style. Dragon flame jutsu. A fire dragon appeared from the elder ninja's mouth, rapidly heading towards the young ninja with hands clamped together again. Wind style. Stream. Naruto exhaled a stream of wind, rapidly pushing him out of the flame's trajectory, missing its target. The young Uzumaki landed on the ground softly, stood up, and stared at his opponent who had a smirk on his face. During the 6 months, the blonde ninja underwent elemental training once again to get stronger, and as a result, He completely mastered his primary elemental chakra to the point that he no longer needs to do hand signs to perform wind-style ninjutsu, but as for the other elements, that's a different story. You've really progressed, compared to our first battle. You tired yourself out easily when you used your Sage mode, and your Nine Tails chakra mode, trying to keep up with me. The Sage chuckled before continuing, but now you're using the same amount of strength and speed without transforming or tiring yourself out. You should be proud. Naruto smiled at the comment. Thanks, sensei. It means a lot coming from you, but, the elder sage cocked an eyebrow. I know you're not using half of your speed and power, neither am I. Naruto smiled at the sage who smiled back. Very well, then. I shall push you and make you give up, declared the shinobi getting into his fighting stance. Naruto readied himself and slipped into his frog kata stance. He, you forgot one thing. I'm your descendant, meaning I don't know the words, giving up. With that, the two sages raised their chakra levels to 50%, surprising the audience, although the young sage's power is still low, compared to their ancestors. The ninjas stare at each other's eyes, waiting for the moment to strike. Then it happened. Now, thought the two as they disappeared from sight. The two ninja made a beeline towards each other with their cocked right hands, ready to attack. As they got into strike distance, they launched their chakra-powered arms and collided. The contact created a huge shockwave that shook the ground, causing the audience to use chakra to stay steady, and the two ninja disappeared again. The battle went on for 10 minutes, 8 minutes longer than the first battle at the beginning of the training. The elder sage and the young Uzumaki threw almost everything at each other, countering each other's attack with elemental ninjutsu, then genjutsu, which didn't work on Naruto, thanks to Kurama, and finally taijutsu. The two relatives countered each other's punches, kicks and so on, letting neither one to penetrate their defenses, and finally they did. Naruto and the sage both punched each other's faces simultaneously, causing them to reel their heads back, and leapt backwards to get distance from each other. The young blonde had more bruises on his face as before, but is rapidly healing, courtesy of his partner's healing powers, and his attire is starting to wear out, while his mentor has bruises and scratches on his face with his attire starting to wear out as well. Neither of the ninja showed any sign of exhaustion, neither physical nor chakra related, much to the amazement of the Senju. I don't believe what I'm seeing. Neither of them are tired from all that. I was expecting Naruto to, at least, show a little exhaustion by now, said a Senju clan member. No, Naruto progressed far in his training and has become more powerful than he was when he first arrived here, said a feminine voice. The clan turned around to find a beautiful woman in her early 30s with black hair, dark green eyes, and wearing a dark blue kimono with the stylized rinnegan in the back. Ah, my lady Amari, bowed the same Senju clan member, so did the rest of the clan. The woman sighed and walked closer to the one who bowed first. I told you, all of you, that you don't need to do that to me or my husband. We are family, just as Naruto is family to us. Everyone rose up with the Senju clan male saying, yes, madam, I apologize. The woman smiled at this and looked behind to see the battle, and a smirk appeared on her face. I believe the battle is about to be over, said the wife. The clan turned around to see the sage armed with a katana in his right hand and looked at Naruto with a katana as well with his right arm as his sword arm. Both of the ninjas' attires had been slice marks in critical areas, indicating they both dodged killing moves. Naruto, I'm proud that you've lasted this long. Much longer than I had expected. Now let's see who shall emerge victorious in this battle, said the sage, pointing his sword at his protege. Naruto readied his sword and closed his eyes, remembering all of his kenjutsu training sessions with the old man, and opened his eyes, knowing that this will determine if he pass or not. The two sages stared at each other once more, then charged at each other, and with both yells of exertion, they swung their swords when they got in close range. Their swords clanged and the two ninja find themselves at the opposite sides where they stood before. Moments passed by until the elder sage fell to his left knee, using his right knee to support him. He clutched his stomach that was bleeding profusely, and Naruto walked towards him, stopping when he was in front of him. His mentor looked up at him with a black expression. Naruto broke the silence. So did I pass? No, you failed, said the sage coldly. Naruto widened his eyes in pain when he felt something pierce his stomach and looked over his shoulder to the sage clutching his left side with his left arm with his sword arm connecting to his back. I'm disappointed, Naruto. I thought I taught you to never let your guard down, even if your enemy is down. The Uzumaki then smirked, confusing his teacher. Well, sensei, I've learned back home in how to catch my opponents off guard, even experienced ninja like yourself. The sage widened his eyes when he suddenly found himself surrounded 5 katana-armed Narutos, sticking the blades close to the pressure points with too close to his throat. The Naruto pierced by the sage's blade puffed in smoke after this. The sage started chuckling, soon laughing, which confused the Narutos. Old man? The elder ninja turned around slowly, while avoiding the blades, to face the one who was behind him who subtly gulped. You pass, said the sage with an eye smile. The original Naruto blinked. Say what? You pass, repeated the elder. The Narutos has smiles reaching their ears and cheered, not believing what they just heard. The clones dispersed, leaving the original laughing and cheering, with the sage looking at the audience. He passed. Huzzah! The collective outcry of the Senju as they sprinted towards their blood relative. Naruto cried out as he was carried and put on the shoulders of 2 Senju, cheering for him. Naruto! 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 Congratulations, Naruto, said the tailed beast. Thanks, Kurama, replied the blonde Jinchuriki, letting his friend go back to sleep. The sage looked at his relatives who looked at him. Yeah, Naruto replied with a fist into the air, making his relatives cheer louder. Amari soon joined her husband, both of them smiling at each other as they enjoy each other's company while looking at Naruto. Do you think he will do it? Asked Amari, looking at her husband. He was still looking at his protégé for a few moments until he looked at his beautiful wife and gave her an answer. Yes, I believe he can do it. There is one final objective to be done. Amari caught on what objective the sage was talking about. Honey, you don't know if it will work. You tried it and it didn't work, so what makes you think that Naruto can do it? Her husband looked at her for a moment and said, because he is the one. Amari was surprised by his answer, but smiled at the amount of trust and faith that her husband has for the boy. She walked with him towards the huddled group. Everyone stopped cheering when they noticed their ancestors approaching with Naruto stepping out in front of the group. The sage cleared his throat and said, Naruto Uzumaki, you have grown exceptionally powerful since you've arrived in our humble home. You've grown closer to all of us since we are family. You've shown the strength of both Uzumaki and Senju, showing that the strong bond between our clans is stronger than ever. Your parents would be extremely proud of you. Everyone cheered loudly, startling the young Uzumaki slightly. The sage quickly raised his hand, cutting the cheering. However, this means that you are ready to retrieve the 4 sealing keys from the worlds that I sent them to and defeat the 10 tails and save our world. Naruto's anger rose when the sage mentioned the demon's name and clenched his fists, but calmed down as quickly as his anger rose. He looked at the sage and said, Don't worry, sensei. I'll retrieve the keys, defeat the 10 tails, save the tailed beasts in our world. I'm more than ready. The sage nodded in agreement and continued. However, this caught everyone's attention. There is one final objective that you must accomplish before you head on your journey. Naruto, along with the Senju clan, was greatly confused by this notion. Sensei, what do you mean that I have one final objective to complete? I completed your training and passed your test, asked a puzzled Naruto. You must rest, Naruto. You will start the objective tomorrow morning, you will need your full rest. The young sage knew that he couldn't get an answer until the next morning and complied. Yes, sensei, Naruto bowed to his mentor. The sage bowed as well and started walking back to the house. Soon the Senju clan followed their ancestors as did Naruto, noticing that it was already nighttime. Wow, I can't believe it's night already, Naruto yawned and stretched his arms. I should do what sensei said and get some shut-eye. With that, the shinobi continued to walk back to the house, preparing himself for whatever he has to do to complete the objective. Unbeknownst to the residents, a figure with a pineapple-shaped hair was at the entrance, grinning. The next morning, you want me to do what now? Asked Naruto deadpanned. The young Jinchuriki was in a new set of standard leaf shinobi attire with his headband and sandals. When he woke up, his mentor left him a note to meet him at the forge. You heard me. I want you to create a sword, replied the sage. Naruto was puzzled by this notion. Sensei, why am I making a sword? Better yet, I don't know how to make a sword, I'm not a blacksmith. You're right on that, said a voice behind the blonde. He turned around and his eyes widened when he saw a familiar face. The man looked exactly like his laid-back friend. Naruto was at a loss of words. Shikaku? Is that you? He received a nod from the elder Nara. How are you here? Never that, how are you? I'm doing fine, despite being dead. The line at the check-in station for newly departed souls was a huge drag. Just when I left the station, I heard about a living blonde whiskered kid being trained by the sage of the six paths and I immediately thought of you. Naruto smiled and rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. Yeah, thanks. So what are you doing here? He felt a hand on his shoulder and looked at his mentor. Naruto, Shikaku here is blacksmith and a darn good one, a prodigy. He made some of the best weapons in Konoha. The young sage's eyes bulged out by this revelation and looked at the Shikaku. You were a blacksmith? Yeah, when I was in my youth, replied the Nara plainly. Naruto was dumbfounded by his answer. Does Shikamaru know about this? Shikaku shook his head. No, but I will see him again pretty soon as well as the others. Naruto's ears perked up when he heard, others. Others? Soon? You mean? Shikaku nodded in anticipation of what the blonde shinobi was about to say. Naruto smiled as hell. Yes, I'm going to see my friends again. Tell me, how long until they get checked in? Shikaku put his thumb against his chin, thinking about the time. 5 days. Naruto cheered. Alright, that means I can see them before I leave, said Naruto happily. He soon noticed the frown on the elder Nara's face and looked at his mentor's face, having the same look. What? Naruto, the young shinobi turned to face his mentor. The thing is that you must start your journey tomorrow and I want you to make your sword by tonight or tomorrow morning. Naruto was surprised by this revelation, but was more confused than before. Sensei, doesn't forging a sword take time like 2 days? Actually 2 weeks, said the sage simply, making his apprentice sweat drop at the tone. You have an advantage going for you. Naruto cocked an eyebrow in response. What's that? The sage responded. Shikaku here will help you to forge your sword, but the process will be long. How long will it take with Shikaku helping me? Naruto eagerly, wanting to get started. If you start now, you probably will finish by tonight or tomorrow morning. Naruto smiled after his mentor finished explaining. Then what are we waiting for? Let's get started, replied Naruto, getting inside the forge, ready. Shikaku chuckled and looked at the father of all ninja. I will let you when it is finished. The sage nodded in agreement and walked away, leaving the forge to rest in his house. The elder Nara walked inside the forge, impressed by the tools and mechanics, and he saw the young Uzumaki touched a tool that fell down and knocked over a few objects comically, making Shikaku sigh in response. Naruto noticed Shikaku and sheepishly smiled while rubbing the back of his head. My bad, so what do we do first? First you must remove your torso. Naruto twitched his right eye when he heard this. Say what? Shikaku sighed and pinched the bridge of his nose and looked at the sage. Look, do you want to burn your attire while forging your sword? Naruto stroked his chin as he thought about it. You're right. The young sage removed his flak jacket, the dark blue long-sleeved shirt, leaving only his headband and pants on. Okay, what's next? He watched the elder ninja walk to a chest near the pit, prompting him to do the same. When Naruto was beside his friend's father, the latter opened the chest revealing 7 glowing white rocks that filled the room. Soon Shikaku closed the chest. Now, I must tell you about the material that we're using to forge your sword, catching the Uzumaki's attention. The material is derived from the inside of a meteorite that fell out of the stars and crashed on our world. Naruto widened his eyes in surprise as he heard of this. Really? So, what's so important about the meteorite? Shikaku glared at him, making the blonde to regret asking the question. The material from inside the meteorite was used to create the treasured tools of the Sage of the Six Paths, which gave them their immeasurable power and abilities. As Shikaku explained, Naruto briefly remembered the 2 of the tools that he saw Obito summoned before reviving the 10 Tails. Okay, that sounds interesting, but I have a feeling that there's something else, huh? Asked the blonde, getting a nod from Shikaku. Yes, the material had mysterious properties whenever it was used to form weapons. It made the weapons lighter, stronger and more endurable than any other metal on our planet. We'll also combine the meteorite with the chakra metal that's used to create chakra blades, that way you would have a very strong weapon. Naruto smiled. Then, let's stop talking and start forging. Come on, help me get this thing starting. He looked at Shikaku still standing in the same place, making Naruto cocked an eyebrow. Old man Nara? The elder Nara looked at the young Uzumaki. I can't help you physically forge the sword. You must do it on your own. This surprised Naruto out of his mind. But I will help you go through the process, and the 7 meteorite fragments are only enough for one more weapon. So you must be careful, declared Shikaku, sounding so serious, causing the young sage to flinch in response. Naruto thought to himself, man, I liked him better when he was laid back. He was brought out of his thoughts when he heard Shikaku call out to him. Naruto. The latter stammered, why yes, sir? Let's begin. We only have tonight and tomorrow morning to complete your sword. Naruto stared at him with determination. Let's do this, as he opens the chest and picked up one of the glowing meteorite. The entire day and night was filled with sounds of metal clanging, heat steaming, and yells of pain from the blonde ninja as he accidentally burns himself. Early morning, the following day. Enough, Naruto. It is finished, said Shikaku as he commanded his temporary blacksmith protege. The young toad sage had placed the newly forged sword into a huge tub of ice and water, as the cold temperature will cool it down. Naruto was covered with sweat, and some dark powder-like bruises are present on his face, his chest and arms. His physique had changed greatly after the 6 paths training. His arms are defined as well as his chest, 6 packs, and his body is more lean than before. But, what about the crossguard? We haven't put that in yet? Shikaku raised his hand to silence the Jinchuriki. Go to your room and rest. You will need all of your strength before you head out for your journey. Naruto was about to protest, but stopped himself as he knew that the elder Nara won't budge, so he nodded and left the forge. The former blacksmith walked towards to where the sword is being cooled and stared at it. Just maybe. Later that evening, Naruto spent the entire day, resting from the all-nighter he just went through. He was thinking about his newly forged sword, but that was bugging him the most was the importance of the material that he used to forge the weapon. He was brought out of his thoughts and sleep when he heard a knock on the door. Naruto? Asked a voice. Yeah? The sage wants you in the training ground. He's got something important to tell you. Naruto groaned in response and opened his eyes. Naruto yawned as he sat up. I'll be there in 10 minutes. He heard footsteps walking away from his door and so proceeded to take a shower. 10 minutes later, the young Jinchuriki put on his leaf shinobi attire with his headband, the shuriken holster attached on his right thigh, and a hip pouch worn over half of his lower back. He walked down the stairs and out of the house, and he saw the entire Senju clan, including Shikaku, sitting on their knees with the sage of the 6 paths and his wife standing before them. His mentor noticed him and gestured him to come over to them. The protege complied and walked around his relatives and soon is standing before his ancestor. Naruto noticed a case on a table behind the sage and realized that it was his sword inside. Is that? The sage nodded. Yes, your sword is now complete. Here is your weapon. The elder ninja grabbed the box and opened it, hearing a gasp from his protege. He see a dato that has no crossguard. Alongside it was a black sheath, but that's not all. The entire weapon is white. From the razor-sharp blade to the was still in shock that he didn't hear his mentor call his name. After the 5th time, the Uzumaki snapped out of it. What? I said you may wield your sword. The sage watched his protege pick up his weapon and examined it. Come on, I know you can do it. Naruto stared at his newly forged weapon and felt a strange connection to it, as if it's trying to tell him something. Naruto, the sage catching the young swordsman's attention, what are you going to name it? Name it? Naruto puzzled by this question. The sage nodded. It is customary that we name our weapons once they're forged. Naruto looked at his sword again, this time closed his eyes. Time seemed to pass by as the young shinobi kept thinking about what name he should give until he opened his eye when he heard some form of chanting from the sword, that only he can hear. Finally he found the name appropriate for his blade and looked at his mentor, who realized that he made his mind. What is your blade's name? Naruto answered. Tenkaichi. Suddenly the entire sword glowed brightly, making everyone present with Naruto covering his eyes as well while holding his sword. As quickly as the light came, it was gone, with everyone looking at Naruto and gasped by what they saw. The young Uzumaki opened his eyes and he was surprised by what he's seeing. His entire sword's color changed to black from the tip of the blade to the hilt and has a crossguard with 4 prongs that bend out to the shape of the manji. Then he noticed a short length of black chain linked to a small red circle dangling from the base of the hilt. He grabbed the chain to inspect the circle and realized that the circle is actually a replica of the swirl symbol of the Uzumaki clan. Sensei, what does this mean? How did the sword change color, not to mention about the chain with my clan's symbol and the crossguard wasn't there before? Asked Naruto, demanding answers. The sage chuckled, confusing the blonde and his relatives. The reason that I wanted you to forge your sword is because it is a part of you. While you were forging the sword the entire time, the meteorite absorbed portions of your chakra and your soul. Therefore, your weapon is a part of you and you know your sword's true name. That is why Tenkaichi changed its color and the chain as well your clan's symbol and the crossguard appeared because this is its true form, replied the sage. Naruto is shocked by this revelation and looked at his newly named sword, still processing that it's a part of him. Naruto realized something else. You knew about this, didn't you? He received a nod from his mentor. Yes, because my blade was made by the same material but I didn't forge it, said the sage placing his hand on the hilt of his sword. Naruto blinked his eyes as he didn't see it when he arrived. Am I really that dense to not notice his sword? His mentor continued. One of the worlds that you're going to will have people, very powerful people, with abilities that rivals our people's abilities. Really? What can you tell me about them? Asked the excitedly Uzumaki. The sage shook his head. That's for you to find out. Naruto pouted in response. The first shinobi chuckled before a serious face appeared, causing everyone but his wife to gulp loudly. Now you must start your journey now. You are ready. Naruto nodded as he sheathed Tenkaichi and slung it over his right shoulder. He turned right, walked for a few yards, then stopped. The sage was a few feet behind him, both saying nothing to each other. Finally the first Jinchuriki spoke. Remember that there are 4 worlds that the keys are located. To get to each of them, you first must pass through each bridge world that connects the 4 major worlds. Naruto nodded. Yes, I know. The young Jinchuriki realized something else. How do I know if I'm in the world where one of the keys are located and how do I find them? He saw the former Jinchuriki point at his stomach. Kurama? Yes. Kurama was born when I used the keys to help me split the 10 tails chakra. He will be your compass and tell you if you're in one of the 4 major worlds or one of the bridge world. The sage finished, receiving a nod from his young protege. He smiled at his descendant, remembering the all-time they spent together during the past 6 months. Good luck, Naruto. I know you will succeed. He opened his arms with the young sage complied, giving him a hug. They soon broke the hug with Amari walking next to her husband. Please stay alive and come back to us, said the beautiful woman, hugging her descendant. Naruto broke the hug and looked over Amari's shoulder, seeing the Senju clan walking over to their location. The hero of the hidden leaf waved them goodbye, receiving waves of goodbyes from them. Hold on for one moment, called out someone. Everyone looked to find a woman with bright red hair, a small diamond on her forehead, and she was wearing a bright green and blue kimono with a stylized Uzumaki clan symbol on the back. Naruto smiled as he recognized the woman as his clansman. Mito, the wife of the first Hokage, smiled when she heard her name called. She walked over to her fellow Jinchuriki and gave him a hug, which the latter hugged her tightly. The 2 Uzumakis bonded during the 6 months and Mito taught Naruto the history of their clan as well every unique fuinjutsu in their clan's arsenal. After a few moments, the sage walked a few feet away from everyone and closed his eyes. Kurama, called out Naruto. The fox slightly opened his eyes and growled a little for being woken up. What is it, Naruto? It's time. The tailed beast's eyes shot up and raised his head slightly. It's that time already? Very well, let's do this, Naruto. Yep, let's start the process. Naruto opened his eyes and started channeling chakra into his arms. Soon his regular blue chakra appeared in his right palm followed by Kurama's red, yellowish chakra in his left palm. He slowly put his palms together, creating a Rasengan-like sphere with yellow and blue chakra swirling. Now, thought Naruto as he thrusts his arms forward, releasing the energy. The energy started to create a white portal that appeared in front of the young Uzumaki. The latter then stopped channeling energy as he felt that the portal was stable enough and started walking towards it. Naruto, called out the sage. The Jinchuriki turned around to look at him. Remember, you must wait 2 months to open another portal to the next world. Naruto gave a thumbs up. Got it. Thank you guys for everything, and I promise you, I will not fail. The Senju clan cheered and raised his fists high into the air with Naruto's fist in the air as well. The Toad Sage turned to face the portal and jumped into the portal before it closed. The Sage of the Six Paths smiled at the spot where his protege stood, as he knows that his descendant will not give up in his quest. Unknown Realm. Among a huge city covered by darkness, there lies a house with a satellite disk pointing to the stars in the sky. Fences surrounding the roof and an odd smell of death filled the air. Suddenly, the atmosphere seemed to fill with electricity, then sparks started to appear and reacting with the area. Then a white portal appeared out of nowhere, causing the spot below to spider crack, followed by creating a small crater. A familiar figure appeared, stepping out of the white doorway. As the portal closes, the figure sighed and looked up into the sky, staring at the moon. Beautiful moon tonight, huh? Naruto thought to himself, then remembered the keys. I better check with Kurama to see if this is one of the bridge world. Kurama. Yeah, I know. Give me a moment. Oh, boy. Naruto became worried when he heard that. Kurama, what do you mean by, oh, boy? This is one of the bridge worlds. I sensed around everywhere in this world, but no luck. That means one of the keys is not here. Naruto hung his head as he and his partner needs to wait 2 months in order to travel to the next world. What am I supposed to do for 2 months? He got his answer when he heard screaming coming from the side of the house, so he sprinted to the edge and was appalled by what he's seeing. 5 disfigured and bloodied people, slouching with wide jaw distance, blank and rolled back eyes, and have a pale skin tone. They surrounded a woman and quickly attacked her, feasting on her flesh. Well, you got your answer. You can kill those things, replied Kurama simply. Naruto ignored his partner's answer while he was appalled at the sight of humans eating another human. What the hell is going on here? He noticed the cannibals turn around and started walking towards them, causing the leaf shinobi to smirk. Oh, well, Naruto drawing Tenkaichi, I might as well try out my new weapon. He jumped down to the ground, landing in front of the disfigured humans and pointed his sword at them. One of them lunged at him with incredible speed, but Naruto quickly sidestepped to the left and swung his sword at his attacker's head, spilling blood across the area. As the body dropped dead, Naruto looked at the rest of them and smirked at them. A second later, he was behind them with his sword dripping blood and the bodies' heads severed on the ground with the collapsed feasters. The sage swung his sword to get the blood off and sheathed it, then he walked to one of the bodies, examining it. What are you doing, Naruto? I'm checking to see if they can infect others by contact or something else, replied Naruto as he flipped one of the headless bodies face up and noticed a bite mark on the shoulder. Swath, they bite you, you'll turn into one of them. Kurama observed the bite mark and Naruto cocking his eyebrow. What do you mean, them? I took them all out. Kurama responded. Take a look to your right. The Jinchuriki complied and his eyes widened in surprise when he saw a horde of the cannibals numbering around 50 or more, slouching towards him. Whoa, there's so many of them. Naruto a little panicked. He heard his partner chuckle. This should be a cinch for you. You can take them out easily, Kurama replied, prompting his Jinchuriki to make a hand sign. Wind style. Great breakthrough, said Naruto simply. A strong gust of wind appeared out of nowhere and headed towards the slow enemy. The wind technique collided with the cannibals, sending them back with great force until they're no longer seen. The young Uzumaki sighed. I better check for survivors, if there are any. He leapt high onto one of the houses next to him, then continued leapt across multiple houses while exploring the chaos-ridden city, looking for survivors. As the leaf shinobi continued jumping from building to building, he started to give up hope of finding survivors until he heard a scream. He turned his head to the left and changed direction, heading to the origin of the scream, and after a few minutes, he stopped on one of the buildings that were across the street from a building with lights on. Naruto see a boy with an average appearance, spiky black hair, a slender but powerful build, and was wearing some sort of uniform and was armed with a metal bat. He was a few feet away from an odd vehicle on 2 wheels standing next to a machine. The sage noticed 2 more people standing on the opposite side from him, and the sight was enough for Naruto's anger to rise slightly. A man with dark skin, wearing strange attire, was holding a teenage girl around his age hostage. The girl had reddish-brown eyes, long, light brownish hair with bangs and 2 strands on sticking out of the rest of her hair, and a slender figure with ample breasts. She was also wearing some sort of uniform as well. The dark-skinned man was groping the girl's left breast and declared making her his slave as their world was thrown in chaos. The shinobi drew a kunai and reappeared behind the perpetrator, shocking the teenage boy with the former noticing his expression. "What the hell is with that look on your face? I told you to. Let the girl go." Naruto in cold tone with his kunai near the soon-to-be dead man's throat. The man was in disbelief as someone got behind him and is preventing him from getting what he wants. "You think I'm gonna hand over this by?" He stopped when the blonde ninja pushed the kunai closer to his throat, almost to the point of piercing the skin. The young Uzumaki glared at him coldly. "I'll say this one last time. Let her go now?" The boy and the girl both felt the killing intent emitting from the stranger, except the perpetrator didn't what he was ordered to do. "Ha, fat chance, Blondie. I'm gonna kill you first, then the damn boy over there, and after I have my fun with the slut here, I'll—" The crazy man didn't finish his sentence as his jugular and throat bleed profusely from the cut by a swift slice by the kunai. The man let go of the girl who ran to her friend, holding him tightly for comfort while the former grasped his throat, gasping for air, then collapsed on the ground. The 2 teenagers looked at the stranger fling his kunai to get the blood, then put the small blade in some sort of holster on the thigh. They see him wearing a very strange attire as well, a black headband with a metal plate that had a weird symbol and a black katana slung over his right shoulder. Naruto noticed them staring at him and smiled at the teenagers. "Are you all right, miss?" The girl reluctantly nodded. The ninja took a step forward, and suddenly the boy took out a weird weapon from his pants and pointed it at him. "Really? I just saved your friend from getting raped by that crazy guy and this is the thanks I get?" The boy still pointed the weapon at him, soon shaking a little. "We don't know if you'll kill us or betray us. After what just happened, I can trust nobody." Naruto sighed as he understood what the teenagers went through and it is normal for them to react this way. The sage replied, "Look, if I wanted you to kill you, you'd be dead right now and you'd never find out how." The teenagers' eyes widened in fear when the stranger revealed he could kill them in an instant without them realizing what happened. The former then tried to calm the situation as he didn't want to try to take the weapon from the boy since he doesn't know what it can do to him or them. "What are your names?" Both teenagers were surprised when he asked for their names and they did so reluctantly. "Takashi Kamuro," replied the black-haired boy. Naruto nodded and looked at the girl to give her name. "Ray M. Miyamoto." The shinobi then gave his name. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki." He walked towards to both teens, ignoring the weapon in front of him since he'll dodge it or take it from Takashi before he knew what hit him. He stopped a few feet from them and extended his hand, smiling at them. Takashi and Rei were surprised by Naruto's gesture and emotion as if nothing's happened and they were greeting for the first time. The former reluctantly lowered the weapon and extended his right hand, connecting with Naruto's, and shook it for a few seconds before letting go. "Sorry about just now, Naruto raised his hand, stopping Takashi. The sage lowered his hand. "I understand completely, as I would have done the exact same thing if it happened to me and someone that I know." The boy sighed in relief. "Are you two the only survivors?" Both shook their heads. Rei responded, "No, we got separated from our group and planned to rendezvous at the police station." Naruto nodded and looked around to see darkness surrounding them with the lights above them keeping it at bay. He looked back at the teens and asked what they didn't expect. "Can I tag along with you guys? I can help you get back together with your group and find a safe place for all of you to live in." Takashi thought about it for a few moments as he observed Naruto. The blonde's appearance gives the impression that he can handle himself in a fight and could be a key member at fighting them. Takashi nodded in agreement as they heard groaning nearby. The trio looked to see them everywhere, surrounding the building. "Come on, let's go." Rei as Takashi and her got on the motorcycle. The duo realized that it doesn't have room for Naruto and looked at him. "Sorry, Naruto, it's only meant for two." The leaf smirked, confusing his new friends. "Don't worry, I'll keep up." The high schoolers cocked their eyebrows and was about to ask how, but they noticed the undead getting closer and decided to ask later. Takashi turned on the engine and turned the knob, driving away from the station and Naruto. Rei looked back to see her rescuer disappear as they drive farther away. "Takashi, What do you think he meant that he'll keep up with us? Her childhood friend shrugged his shoulders. I don't know, but I hope he's alright. Ah, thanks guys, said Naruto. The two teens' eyes bulged out anime style as they looked to their left to see Naruto running alongside them. The ninja chuckled at their reactions. Don't worry, I'll explain everything about me once I get you back to your group, okay? He received nods from them with Takashi watching the street as he drives. Naruto continued running alongside his friends as he had something on his mind. I'll get them and their group in a safe and secure place. That's a promise. Naruto's eyes moved a little in response from the sun's rays, slowly opened them after. Morning, already? He slowly got up from a sofa that he was sleeping on, popped his joints, then looked out of the window. The ninja and his new friends had settled in the apartment since Rei was exhausted and traumatized from her experience by the crazed man, and Naruto knew that one's need rest to calm her state of mind. So the ninja persuaded the teens to rest for the night. He looked down to see Takashi sleeping on the floor after letting Rei take the bedroom, so the former carefully moved around the black-haired boy and proceeded to the kitchen. He opened the refrigerator, one of the few things he recognized in this world, took out a bottle of water and gulped it down to the last drop. After that, the swordsman walked over to the window where he placed Tenkaichi next to his hip pouch, shuriken holster, Takashi's metal bat and Rei's makeshift spear below it. Naruto equipped his hip pouch, his holster, and stared at his clan's symbol dangling from the base of the hilt before he slung the sword over his right shoulder. Then he heard movement and turned around to see Takashi rubbing his eyes, then got up to stretch his joints from resting on the floor. Morning, Takashi. How do you feel? I feel better since we slept. I think a long rest was necessary after yesterday. He looked out the window with Naruto, both staring at the chaos-ridden world. Soon a frown appeared on Takashi's face. It wasn't a dream, wasn't it? The shinobi looked at him and shook his head. Unfortunately, no. This wasn't what the blonde was looking forward when he started his journey to receive the keys, but he's here now, helping his two new friends to reunited with their group. You should wake up Rei. We need to get moving if we're going to find your friends. Takashi nodded in agreement. He picked up his bat and walked inside the room where Rei was sleeping to wake her up. A few minutes later, the boy came out with the female behind him, with the latter waving at the ninja, who waved back in response. Naruto put his hand down. How are you feeling, Rei? I feel much better since we rested for the night. The male duo looked at her when she didn't finish her sentence. Thank you, Naruto, for saving us. Especially me. Naruto had a frown on his face when he realized that the girl was still traumatized despite being a strong woman. An experience like she went through plus the chaos in their world must have pushed her mental state to its limit. You're welcome. Naruto sighed, then looked out of the window. We should get moving. As soon as we leave, the sooner we can locate your group. The two high schoolers nodded. Later, they went out of the house with Naruto armed with a kunai, Takashi with his bat and Rei with her spear. They located the motorcycle that was outside near the gate along with 5 of them in the area. Naruto stopped and looked over his shoulder to glance at his friends. Stay here. I'll handle them. They were about to protest, but Naruto gave them a look that prevented them. The latter faced forward and casually walked out in plain sight, waiting for one of the cannibals to attack him. But to his confusion, they didn't attack, especially since one passed by him as if he wasn't there. He looked at his friends for answers, with Takashi realizing the former doesn't know about the weaknesses. Naruto, almost all of their senses are dead. They are sensitive to sound, no matter how small it is. The ninja was surprised, then he nodded as he proceeded to take out the threat. He quickly drew 5 shurikens and swiftly threw them at the 5 undead and was met with thuds in response. Clear, said Naruto, calling to his friends. The latter two came from their spot and got on their motorcycle with the ninja standing beside them. You guys ready? He receives nods and looked forward. Let's go then. Takashi brought the motorcycle to life and hit the gas, heading to their meeting place at the police station with Naruto running alongside with them. Elsewhere near a bridge, the road connecting to a bridge was overflowed with traffic of vehicles, people walking past them with backpacks filled with supplies. One of the vehicles is a bus that harbors 2 groups of survivors originating from Fujimi High School. The driver was slouching against the wheel, bored as hell. She has long blonde hair extending to her waist, hazel eyes, ridiculous curves, and her most prominent characters are her huge J-cup assets, and sporting a white dress shirt with a ripped brown skirt. She was the school's nurse and current medical examiner, Dr. Shizuka Marikawa. 2 rows behind her are 2 members of her group, or Takashi's group, sitting next to each other. An overweight teenage boy with brown eyes, black shoulder-length hair, sporting a uniform similar to Takashi's uniform and was doing what he thought best, sleeping against the window. He was Hirano Koda. Next to him is the genius of the group, Saya Takagi. She has long pink hair tied into 2 ponytails on either side of her head, orange hairs, furrowed eyebrows, with a slender physique and F-cups or bikini model breasts. Lastly, she sported glasses and a uniform similar to Rei's attire and their top fighter, Seiko Busujimi. She was sitting behind the duo. The former has long, straight and shiny purple hair, blue eyes, and D-cups as well, sporting the same uniform as Rei and Saya. Her eyes were closed as she was resting with her Bakken wooden sword in her crossed arms. Behind them at the end of the bus lies the other group led by Shido, a former teacher at their school. Currently he's preaching about the end of the world, and how he'll save them all. Saya was thinking about something until she got irritated with the boys snoring and decided that nap time is over. Hirano, stop, the girl nudged him. Koda snorted in response before opening his eyes and looked at her. Takagi, good morning. Is it daytime already? Yeah, it's morning, Takagi scoffed when she noticed a liquid coming from the boy's mouth, and you're drooling. Sorry, as the latter then wiped the drool with his hand and looked out of the window to see the nightmare traffic jam. Look at that. I think it's better to evacuate to the suburbs. Cars are the only way to get out of here. Saya pointing out the window into the sky with an airplane flew by. Hirano realized what she was talking about. Oh yeah, the airport and the ocean, right. Then the genius talked about the American forces in Okinawa and the Special Defense Forces and their protocol to keep a small community to survive. I should have talked to Kamuro if he was still here. He would have an answer or know what to do from this point. Pointed out Takagi, since she knew that her childhood friend had answers in the current crisis they're in. Hirano looked hurt by that statement and looked out the window. Yeah, you like Kamuro, I know. Takagi blushed and defended herself. Don't be ridiculous. She then felt 2 presences behind and quickly turned to her left to see both Seiko and Shizuka standing there, still blushing from Hirano's comment. What? Seiko looked out of the window. I'm getting worried about Kamuro and the others. I hope they can hold on until we meet up somewhere else in town with Naruto, Takashi and Rei. An explosion occurred near in front of a building next to a bridge overhead with several cars in the cars with space between them. People screaming from the terror that is upon them. A zombie was shot by a shotgun wielded by a shirtless, bald man with a bandage on his left forearm and a tattoo. The man laughed manically. That's right, run. Run like hell. He continued laughing and shooting again. Under the bridge was the trio whose objective is to reunite with their group. Rei was the first to speak when they saw what just happened. This is absolutely nuts. It's like a war. And we're in the front row center for it, replied Takashi as he looked at the ninja. He couldn't figure out how the blonde managed to keep up with a motorcycle and show no signs of exhaustion or fatigue. But he remembered his new friend's statement of telling them about him when they're back with the group and in a safe location, and with that, he faced forward. Naruto lowered his head a little as he silently remarked the girl's statement. This isn't a war. This is absolutely nothing compared to what I went through. He raised his head to face the destruction and analyzed what is the best way for them travel through, but he couldn't finish when he heard Takashi about charging through the place and revved up the motorcycle. The shinobi quickly got in front of motorcycle, surprising the duo. Naruto, what are you doing? He looked over his right shoulder and replied. I'll go first. Wait for 5 seconds and then go, okay? Takashi was about to protest but realized that he wouldn't convince the blonde, so he reluctantly nodded in agreement. Naruto faced forward and sprinted towards the carnage. As he got near the destruction and the crazed people as the dead, the ninja quickly drew shurikens in both hands from the shuriken holster and hip pouch respectively. The ninja threw the spinning projectiles at them before they even noticed him and fell to the ground with the sprinter still running. Soon he stopped when he got to the other side, and heard the motorcycle coming closer and saw his new friends appear, stopping behind him. The 2 males nodded and the high schoolers continued onward with Naruto following. Later after that, Takashi saw the bridge and his eyes widen when he saw something that wasn't right and took a left turn, confusing Rei and Naruto until the latter caught a brief glimpse at the bridge as he turned left and realized Takashi made the right call. "Why'd you turn, Takashi?" The bridge was straight ahead. The male stopped the motorcycle with Naruto stopping next to them on their left side. Her childhood friend looked over his right shoulder. "I know, but did you see it?" His reply prompted Rei to take a closer look at the bridge and gasped to what she's seeing. At this rate, Rei and Takashi look at Naruto with his arms crossed. "We don't know when we'll be able to cross." Takashi made the right call. The latter received a nod of praise from the blonde and said, "We'll head to Onbetsu Bridge and meet up with the teachers and the others." "Lead the way," said Naruto. Takashi revved the motorcycle and the trio of fighters were off to their destination. Back at the bridge, police officers with water tanks were blasting those who were crossing the bridge without permission and warned the rest to heed their future actions. Evening, the survivors' stranded bus. The bus was still in the traffic jam with the sun getting closer to dusk, and everyone knows it's more dangerous to be out at night than it is at daytime. Inside the bus, Shido was still preaching to his group, talking about pride and how Takashi and Rei was unfit to be their family. At the front of the bus, Seiko, Saya and Shizuka were watching him, unconvinced about the guy's good intentions. The pink hair then spoke to her friends. "This guy is crazy for real. He's preaching like a maniac." Saya with her arms crossed. "You got that right. He sounds like a recruiter for a religious cult," replied Seiko, still staring at him. Saya looked at Seiko. "He doesn't sound like one, he is. Look at the people actually listening to him." The duo looked at the group in the back to see expressions of, "We're saved. We need to get out of here." The swordswoman looked over her left shoulder at the window. "Given the condition on the road, we're going to have to leave the bus to evacuate," Seiko putting her right thumb and index finger to think. "We have to somehow cross Onbesto Bridge and head to the Eastern Police Station. We're still supposed to meet up with Kamuro." Saya fixed her glasses. "You're sure worried about Kamuro, aren't you? Aren't you worried about your own family?" The pink girl responded with a subtle tinge of jealousy. Seiko looked at her. "Of course I am, but my father is my only family and he's at the dojo overseas. So the only people that I need to be worried about are myself and Kamuro." Seiko being oblivious to Saya's evil glare. "So, where are everyone's houses?" asked Shizuka, changing the subject. Saya replied, "On the other side of the bridge, and they're in the same area as Kamuro's house." Hirano quickly caught their attention. "My parents aren't in the neighborhood," the marksman with a tinge of blush on his cheeks, "but I'm willing to go anywhere as long I'm with Takagi." "Ew." Takagi comically stepped away from the boy with a subtle creep-out look on her face, not noticing Seiko's smile. The latter then asked, "Hirano, where's your family? Are you close?" Hirano closed his eyes and replied, "My father is a jewelry merchant, so he's gone to Amsterdam to buy supplies. My mother is a fashion designer, she's been staying in Paris and—" Saya interrupted him. "What kind of ancient story is that? You expect us to believe all that crap?" asked Saya irritated. Shizuka laughed in amusement at Saya's outburst, then looked at Hirano grinning at her. The gun lover asked her, "What about you, Shizuka? Anyone in the city?" He saw her shaking her head in response. "I don't have any family and my other relatives live far away, so I'm coming along with you," replied Shizuka. "I know I shouldn't be saying this, but I think Mr. Shido is kind of a douchebag." The trio smiled and smirked at her comment. "So what do we do? I'm not very familiar with this area," said Seiko to Saya, who crossed her arms to think. "We really should check Onbetsu Bridge first," replied Saya. Their subtle conversation caught Shido's attention, so he turned around to face them. "What's wrong, everybody? We're supposed to work together." The pink-haired genius turned to him with a victorious smirk. "Thanks for the offer, but we have our own plans." Saya ignoring the glare from one of Shido's followers. "This isn't a school field trip, so we don't have obligation to stay with you. Besides, I've never had any of your classes." Shido interlocked his fingers together with a calm glare while staring at the opposite group. "If that's you've decided, then please go right ahead. I won't stop you, after all Japan is a free country." However, Shido slightly opened his mouth and licked his lips while staring at the doctor with a lustful look. "I'm afraid you will have to remain, Miss Marikawa." The nurse gasped in response while Shido continued. "Losing the doctor is a major blow to our current situation. Would you please stay?" The cult leader started walking towards Takashi's group. "There are students relying on you." Suddenly something darted by Shido. The man felt a mark on his left cheek with blood coming out. His followers gasped upon seeing their leader clasping his cheek while looking at Hirano with his makeshift gun pointed at them. The teacher couldn't believe that he did this to him. "Why you shot at me? I missed you on purpose, you douchebag," replied Kota sternly. But you're not a violent student, Shut it." Shido couldn't speak with the gun pointed at him. Kota went on about the abusive teacher making fun of him and allowing other students to bully him and did nothing about it. Lastly, he stated that he won't hesitate to kill living people and start with the ones who made fun of him. Shido walked back slowly with fear in his voice. "Fun of you? You misunderstood my intentions, He was silenced when Kota pointed the gun at his face. "Enough of your lies." He looked over his right shoulder. "Seiko, Takagi, Shizuka, you three head out. I got your back in case he tries to stop you." Seiko had a faint smirk and stood in front of the doorway, then faced Kota. "You're such a man, I'm impressed." Later, Kota slammed the door shut and the group ran up the stairs leaving a very pissed-off teacher in their place. With Naruto, Rei and Takashi, the trio stopped 200 yards away from another bridge that was the same like the others. Overflowed and guarded by either the Special Defense Forces or the American Army. Naruto wasn't expecting his first bridge world to be in such chaos, but he is here and he's helping his new friends along the way. He was standing next to the duo on their right side as they continued to stare at the bridge. Finally Rei broke the silence. "Should we try a different route or something?" Her childhood friend looked over his right shoulder to look at her. "I'm sure they're all the same, possibly every bridge is blocked. What's the point of policing if they're going to block it?" Takashi irritated. Rei frowned and Naruto caught it as well, seeing the same look on Takashi's face. "Listen, you guys," the two looked at the ninja, "we'll find a way, okay? You can't afford to look down on yourself, you got to keep going." The duo smiled a little when they heard those words. Despite only knowing the blonde teenager for a day, they feel they've known him for years and could trust him with their secrets. Takashi quickly realized something and pulled out a cell phone and looked at the time. "Damn it, we got to cross the bridge and meet at the Eastern Police Station." "Naruto, any ideas?" He looked at the ninja, only to find him staring at his phone with a dumbfounded look as if he'd never seen one before. "Naruto?" The ninja was brought out of his state. "Huh?" He saw both teenagers staring him, which made him uncomfortable. "I've never seen that before. What is it?" Rei and Takashi couldn't believe that Naruto, a teenager around their age, doesn't know or seen a cell phone, but the former quickly shook it off. "Look, we'll explain that to you later, and as for your statement, Takashi, it's easier said than done." Then they heard a gunshot that startled the spear martial artist. "Gunshot?" asked Rei. "No, that sounded like." Back with Takashi's group, on the bridge, Shizuka was walking backwards in fear. "You know, maybe we should have stayed with Mr. Shido." Kota shot another nail into one of them while Seiko was away from and knocked away another one. "Hold on, you're the one who said that he was a douchebag," remarked Saya as she got closer to Shizuka. The nurse put her finger to her chin, thinking back what she said. I did, but he wouldn't be the first douchebag that I met." Kota was slowly moving as he continued firing nails into a few of them while Seiko swung her wooden sword to knock another one away. Kota fired another one and said, "Just to let you know, I'm running out of ammo here." Seiko swung her sword to the right, knocking another them out and spun around a zombie that was behind her and horizontally swung at the thing's head, making it collapse. Seiko faced Kota. "Do you want to borrow this?" She gestured to her wooden sword. "No, I'm not fond of hand-to-hand combat," replied the gun lover comically. The swordswoman smirked and faced toward her enemies. "I can't say the same. In fact, I'm actually quite fond of it," replied the purple hair with a sadistic glint in her eyes before she charged with her sword drawn. With Naruto, Rei and Takashi, the trio was in the tunnel and in front of them was a truck with ramps facing upwards, and the latter quickly realized what her crush is going to do. "Wait a minute, are you nuts?" She received no answer, but caught Naruto and Takashi sending subtle nods to each other as they continued forward as they get closer to the truck. Back to Takashi's group, one of the zombies was walking closer to Takagi, who stepped back, but Shizuka bumped into her, causing both of them to fall. Consequently, their skirts flew up, revealing their undergarments, and the gun lover saw them. The results were he became ensnared into a daze as he stared at them until Seiko noticed and called him out. "Huh?" asked Kota. "Look out behind you," shouted Seiko as she swung her weapon into another, then ran towards her ally. The gun lover quickly turned around to see another cannibal close to him and shot another nail through its head, blood spurting from the exit hole. Another cannibal was walking towards and Kota smirked as he pulled the trigger only to hear nothing. He quickly panicked. "I'm out." She was too far away to intervene until she was surrounded by a batch of them, and knew that they were too much. Then she heard a noise that caught the zombies' attention and her friends as well as they look at the railing. "That sounds like a..." Seiko looked to see a motorcycle jumped high into the air along with an unknown figure beside it. The girl looked closer to who was driving the motorcycle and smiled. Komuro and Miyamoto. The latter jumped of the descending motorcycle and thrust her spear into a cannibal behind Seiko as well, landing on it, then spun her spear in 360-degree circle, knocking out more cannibals. In midair, Naruto quickly drew his kunai and threw it at the cannibal close to Kota. He smirked as the weapon lodged itself into the target's head and rolled to soften the landing, then slipped into a crouch with Tenkaichi drew in his sword arm. Meanwhile, Takashi landed on the bridge and drove towards Kota with the pistol in his hand while running over a few undead. "Kota, catch it." He threw the gun at the gun lover who caught it and a mad crazy look appeared on his face. He fired 2 shots while Takashi passed him by, narrowly missing him and hit their targets. Naruto swung his sword overhead at one of the cannibals' head, ending its rampage, but cursed himself as another one took its place. He was getting irritated since it's an endless cycle as he swung vertically downward, cutting it in half. The ninja looked around to see his friends regrouping as more cannibals was walking towards, and he knew that they're too much for them, but not for him and his ninjutsu. He reappeared in front of his allies with his ninja speed, surprising them, and quickly stabbed his sword into the ground, causing small spider cracks, and formed a hand sign. "Naruto, what are you doing? Help us," shouted Takashi as he swung his bat to knock another cannibal away from the group, but he stepped back behind Naruto along with his friends as was walking closer to them. The shinobi channeled his chakra. Wind style. Great breakthrough. A strong gust of wind appeared out of nowhere and pushed back all of the cannibals with great force, sending them to the water below. Everyone's eyes bulged out anime style as they're trying to process what the blonde just did. Naruto grabbed the hilt of his sword, pulled the blade out of the ground and fling it to get the blood off, not noticing the purple hair girl staring at the weapon with admiration. He turned to face Takashi's group and sheathed Tenkaichi, then waved at everyone. "Is everyone okay?" He received no answer and was getting uncomfortable by the way they're staring at him. "Hello, Takashi, Rei, are you guys okay or what?" Finally Rei answered. How did you do that?" "Do what?" asked Naruto innocently. The pink hair girl shouted at him. "What do you mean, what? You just manipulated the wind to push back them into the river. Plus, you appeared in front of him when you were on the other side. No human can do that." The ninja flinched to the girl's outburst and fixed his composure as he was looking at everyone to see any sign of injury while commenting at the girls' appearances. "Man, these girls are something else. The perky blonde one has the biggest bust I've ever seen beside Grandma Tsunade. The pink hair is fine as well, but her outburst tells me she's crude, and as for the purple hair, I think she's the prettiest one of all them with Rei as her rival." He was then surprised as he was shook crazy by the chubby boy with glasses. "Dude, you're awesome. How did you do it? Are you a super soldier? Where did you get that uniform, 'cause it's awesome?" demanded the gun lover, still shaking the ninja until Takashi and Rei pried him off after snapping out of their surprised state. Naruto fixed himself and waited until the chubby teen relaxed and felt everyone's eyes on him. "Look, I'll explain how I manipulated the wind as well about my attire once we get to a secure and safe place." The pink hair girl raised her left eyebrow. "What do you mean, we? You're not part of our group. Everyone's eyes were on her. How can we trust you?" "Really? I just saved your group from those things eating you with Rei and Takashi," replied the blonde sage deadpanned. Saya felt a hand on her right shoulder and found it belonged to her childhood friend, Takashi. "We can trust him. He saved Rei and I and also made a promise to get us back to you guys and to get all of us safe. He kept his word so far, so I'd give him chance if I were you." The leader then took his hand off the girl genius shoulder. Takashi's group knew that the black-haired teenager has natural leadership skills and they trust his judgment, plus the blonde teenager emits an aura of calmness that makes them feel at ease and he just helped save them from the cannibals. The purple hair walked forward close to Naruto and smiled while extending her hand. "Thank you for saving us. My name is Seiko Busujimi." The sage smiled back and took her hand, shaking it then let go. Soon the others followed and introduced themselves to the stranger. "My name is Hirano Koda and I'm a long-range fighter. I'm Shizuka Marikawa and I'm a doctor. Thank you for your help in getting Miyamoto and Kamuro back to us," said the perky blonde waving at the ninja. Naruto looked at the pink hair to hear her name and she reluctantly complied with the others. "I am Saya Takagi and what's your name?" The shinobi smiled. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki and before you start assuming, it means maelstrom, not fish cake. Understand?" His right eye twitched little when he heard snickers from the gun lover and the busty doctor, but stopped. "So now that we're together, does anyone know what's our next move is, because the sun is setting?" Everyone widened their eyes and looked to see the sun setting and the light is slowly dissipating into darkness. They all know, at night, the city is more dangerous with the zombies prowling around and the risks of making sounds are greatly increased. "So what should we do? The bridges are blocked and the river is too strong for us to cross. I think even heading upriver is pointless," said Takagi after observing the river below and the bridge thereon. Shizuka quickly raised her hand. "I know. We could head to my friend's place, it's a short walk from here." "What, your boyfriend's place?" quipped Takagi. No, it's nothing like that. It's just my girlfriend's place," Shizuka comically with a sweat drop while getting funny looks from Koda and Takagi. "She gave me a key, so I can look over the place while she's away." Koda put his finger on his chin, thinking. Is the place a high-rise? Does it have a good view in the surroundings? He received a nod from the doctor and she continued. "Yes, there's also a store and a car. It's one of those military cars, the one that looks like a tank." Shizuka swung her arms, letting her assets juggled a little. "It's this big." Saya sighed, putting her hand in the back of her head. "I don't care about a car as much as a shower. I've never felt so dirtier in my life." Koda had hearts in his eyes as he stares lovingly at the pink genius. "I couldn't agree with you more," said Koda. A moment, he was kicked in the face by Takagi who took offense by the comment and the antic received a few snickers from the blonde ninja. But he stopped when Takagi gave him a death glare. "I'm gonna go check the place out with her," declared Takashi, catching everyone's attention. He looked at Naruto. "Stay here with the others and we'll come back once it's secure." The blonde ninja nodded and he saw the boy and the doctor disappearing in the distance. Later that night, Takashi and Shizuka brought the group back as soon as it was clear. They made it to the apartment with the automatic light sensor responded to their presence. The driveway's light turned alive, revealing a huge vehicle, making the gun lover squeal in delight. "It's a Humvee and it's the military model too," said Koda with small pitch black eyes, his jaws hanging and his hands twitching. Naruto couldn't help but whistle at the design and advancement of the transportation vehicle, even though he has no idea what it is. He then heard Takagi asking about how Shizuka's friend could have afforded such a vehicle and Ray pointing out the fence would keep them out. The ninja tensed when he and the group heard groaning from upstairs and drew his black blade with his clan symbol dangling. He then noticed Takashi grabbing a weapon from Takagi and stepped in front of the group. "I'll take the front. Takashi. You cover the right side, Ray. You cover the left side, Koda. You support the rear and Seiko, you cover the center in case." Understood? Everyone nodded in agreement and Naruto nodded back. "Let's go," as the spiky blonde sage kick opened the fence doors in front of him and the group charged forward. A few minutes later, the group had blood stains on their clothing, including Naruto with a few stains on his flak jacket, and some on his face. He wiped the blood from his face with a rag he had in his pocket and flung his sword to get the blood off, then swiftly sheathed Tenkaichi. The young Uzumaki then turned around to face his new friends and nodded at them before turning his body forward. "Come on, guys. After what you've been through, you'll need a good rest." He received a quiet agreement and they proceeded to the apartment after 2 long days of fighting and surviving chaos, except the shinobi. Naruto was the last one outside the apartment and quickly formed hand signs, before slamming his right hand on the ground. Fuinjutsu markings originated from his hand, extending to the outside of the perimeter of the apartment and to the closed fence. After that, Naruto stood up and sighed while running his hand through his hair. Nothing like an alarm system to alert you of trouble, thanks a lot, Mito. The ninja smiled before he stepped in and closed the door. After 2 days of fighting the now called walkers and exhaustion, the group of surviving teenagers had found a temporary haven with a fridge filled with food, a working vehicle and the mother of all them, a shower with hot water. "Oh, this feels nice," said Rei as she slipped into the bath filled with water and soap along with Shizuka sitting in the other end of the tub. The perky doctor sighed in relief as the cool and relaxing water touches her dirty body. "It feels like I'm melting away." The females of the group decided to take a shower together instead of taking turns for obvious reasons, plus the males. Saya picked up a bottle as she was sitting on a bench alongside Seiko with a mirror in front of them. "This is shampoo, right?" The girl being picky as they come, despite of their world overrun with the undead. "Good God, you're gigantic." Rei staring at Shizuka's huge assets while the latter holds them up a little. Shizuka smiled a little. "I know, I get that a lot." The spear martial artist chuckled a little. "Huh, almost impossible gigantic." Then the girl attacked the doctor by playfully grabbing the latter's gigantic breasts, making her squeal in response. The pink-haired genius twitched her left eye. "Remind me again, why we'd have to take showers at the same time." Seiko looked at her while scrubbing her arm. "You know why. Don't you, Takagi?" Saya sighed in response as she looked back to see the female duo wrestling in the bathtub and was surprised and quickly faced forward while scrubbing her hair frantically. "Yeah, but given the circumstances, I don't think we should be doing this," said Saya, unsuspecting what her friend next to her is going to do. The swordswoman turned the knob to cold in the showerhead and spray the pink hair, making her squeal in response. Seiko smiled with her eyes closed. "Wow, I didn't know that you have such a nice voice. Boys must be falling for you all over in high school." Unbeknownst to her, Saya retaliated by dropping a bucket of cold water on her back, making her moan in delight. She looked at the brains of the group to see her with a grin on her face. "Hey, you started it," remarked Saya. After that, the girls started to play around with each other, shouting playfully and letting 3 certain males listen. Upstairs in the bedroom, "Sounds like they're having fun," said Takashi listening to the sounds. He and his friend, Koda, founded a few boxes of ammunition in one of the lockers with the latter trying to open the other, suspecting that there are guns in it. "Want to take a peek? You know we're supposed to, right?" asked Koda while trying to pick the lock. Takashi shook his head. "No, thanks, man. I actually don't want to die." He and the gun lover heard sloshing, so they turned their faces to the stairs where Naruto was carrying a bucket of water with a clean rag on the side of it. He set the bucket in front of the bed, facing the duo, then took off his sword and set it beside him. Then the ninja took off his bloodied flak jacket and placed it in the bucket and started scrubbing it with the rag. "Hey, Naruto," Koda called out, getting the blonde's attention, "do you want to sneak a peek at the girls?" The Shinbo shook his head. "I actually want to live, thank you very much. And nothing good can come out of it, believe me." He continued scrubbing the blood off his jacket. Takashi and Hirano raised their eyebrows with the latter having a grin on his face. "Oh, you got caught, didn't you?" Naruto shook his head and looked at the duo. "No, but my late sensei did. When he was young, he spied on his fellow teammate and when he got caught, he paid for it. He received several rib fractures and several organ damage by the girl," replied Naruto as he continued scrubbing, and smirked when he saw the terrified look on Hirano's face. The ninja's smirk turned into a mischievous grin, scaring Hirano as well, making the latter sweating bullets like crazy. "Go ahead, I'll send flowers to your funeral." Images of the girls with evil looks with their weapons and the intent to harm overwhelmed the gun lover to the point that he almost peed himself, and Naruto was laughing as hell, clutching his sides. "Shish, Naruto, don't attract attention to ourselves," said Hirano as he tried to shush the unknown ninja for a few minutes until the latter finally calmed down. The marksman sighed and fixed his glasses. "Want to help us get this door open?" The blonde stopped and thought about it for a moment. "Nope, you ladies got it." Tick marks appeared on the duo's heads when they heard the "ladies" comment and stick their tongues at the ninja, who stuck his tongue as well before continuing scrubbing the blood off. "Fine, we don't need you. Come on, Kamuro," said Hirano as he lodged a wrench between the doors with the former grabbing the top of the wrench. "Ready? Now." The two grunted in response as they continued to put more pressure and strength until the door gave way, causing Takashi to lose his balance and fell on his butt. "Ow, that hurt," said the leader as he rubbed his back. Hirano looked inside and automatically grinned like a madman again as he pulled out a weapon from the locker, examining it. Naruto's eyes widened in surprise when his chubby friend brought a larger version of the gun that Takashi pulled on him when he first arrived in their world. "Man, the technology here is ridiculously more advanced than weapons in my world, both weaponry and transportation." He continued to listen to Koda talking about the other weapons like the mad and crazy fan he is until the ninja heard screaming and he looked up to see Takashi pointing one of the guns at Koda. "Hey man, don't ever point that thing at anyone, even if it's not loaded," said Koda comically panicking before a serious face appeared. "The only time you should use it is to kill." "Yeah, but I hope it doesn't come to that, you know," said Takashi, catching Naruto's attention when he finished scrubbing the blood from his jacket and hanged it on the railing for it to dry. The ninja soon realized that if should one of them gets infected by the walkers, one of them must shoot them with no second thought. He heard clanging and turned around to see the chubby gun lover trying to lift his sword, but it wouldn't move for some reason, which confused the trio. "Hirano, what are you doing?" asked the blonde with the former looking at him nervously. He, I just wanted to see your sword, but I can't seem to pick it up," replied Koda as he puts more effort but to no avail. Naruto cocked his eyebrow and walked over to his friend and gestured him to move aside, which the latter did. Then the ninja grabbed the hilt of the sword and sheath and simply picked it up with no trouble. Lastly he faced both Koda and Takashi with the former greatly confused. "I can pick it up just fine. Are you sure you weren't playing around?" Koda pointed his finger comically at the blonde. "Yes, I'm sure that I wasn't playing around. How come you lift it so easily and I can't?" The question did intrigue the wielder of Tenkaichi as he slung the blade over his right shoulder. "Could it be that only I can use Tenkaichi since it's a part of me and whatnot? I should have asked the old man about this." He was brought out of his train of thoughts when Hirano called Takashi to help load the bullets into the magazines, so he decided to head outside to the balcony. As he stepped out to the balcony and leaned forward on the railing, Naruto looked up in the stars and the clouds that drifting by, making the latter smile. "Even if it is a little break, it sure is a bit peaceful tonight." The few minutes of silence passed by for the ninja until he heard noises and Takashi came out with a set of binoculars and looked through them, facing the bridge nearby. "What's happening over there, Takashi?" asked Naruto after a few moments. The black hair leader took the binoculars from his eyes and said, "Chaos. The police are holding a barricade and keeping the uninfected away from the walkers, but they're not letting the uninfected get into the city." The blonde sighed in response as he run his hand through his hair before getting back inside the bedroom and sat on the floor, beside Koda while leaning against the bed. He watched his friend putting the last of the bullets into the magazine before slamming it into the gun and set it in front of him. Then Koda looked at the blonde, staring at his uniform before disturbing him. "Hey, Naruto," the blonde opening his left eye only and looked at the corner of the eye. "Now that we're in a secure place, can you tell us about yourself and your ability to manipulate wind?" Takashi came in after he heard his fellow classmate and sat next to Koda, both staring at the ninja. Naruto opened his right eye and looked at the duo. "Look, my lie is a very long story and I don't like to repeat it because it's a huge drag. I'll tell you guys about when everyone is here. Understand?" He received nods from the pouted high schoolers, then closed his eyes as he goes into a needed rest, or so he thought he was going to. Naruto's mindscape. The young sage felt his consciousness being pulled, so he opened his eyes and found himself in front of his partner, Kurama. "Kurama, what is it, bud?" "Naruto, it's time to start training," replied the fox, surprising his Jinchuriki. Naruto blinked for a few seconds. "Really? Okay, then. Can't let either of us get weak just because we're in another world. Not that I'm saying that you would get weak, Kurama, since you are the strongest tailed beast." He see a smirk on his partner's face before slipping into his frog kata stance and the former crouching with his tail swinging freely behind him. "Ready, kid? Ready, Kurama." The duo charged at each other with Naruto jumping high into the air and was about to land a punch at the fox's face until a sudden shockwave happened, causing the blonde to lose his concentration while in midair. What the heck was that? He didn't receive a verbal answer but a physical answer. Oh, exclaimed Naruto as he was hurtling through the air until he fixed himself and landed on the ground while skidding on the water-soaked floor, until finally stopping 20 yards from the fox. The latter had a grin, which made Naruto have a tick mark to appear on his hand and pointed his finger at the beast. The blonde sage comically complaining, "That was a cheap shot right there, and you know it, Kurama." The fox laughed at his Jinchuriki's antic and he stopped, but still had the grin on his face. "You better check it out. Your new friends must be waiting for you," said Kurama with the same grin, watching the grumbling Jinchuriki disappeared. Real world. Damn cheating fox, Naruto grumbled softly to himself as he opened his eyes. He looked to his right to see Koda standing all freaked out until he looked to his left and he was stunned with his jaw slightly opened. He saw Takashi touching the towel-bound doctor's huge assets before quickly retracting them and looked down. "Sorry about that," Takashi apologizing timidly. He saw Naruto with his jaw opened and was about to say something, but the busty doctor cut him off. "Koda, darling," said the drunken blonde crawling over to the corner of the bed, with the gun lover frozen in place. Who, me, darling?" The ninja quickly stood up next to Takashi, watching the doctor get closer to Hirano. Their jaws dropped when she kissed him on the cheek, causing the boy's face to blush madly, and both males' sweat dropped when blood comically spurt out of the gun lover's nose before fainting. "Looks like he can't handle a simple kiss," remarked Naruto before Shizuka set her eyes on him and lunged at him, but the former was quick on his feet and put the unsuspected Takashi in front of him, who blushed when the doctor was leaning on his chest before falling asleep. Takashi glared at the smirking ninja. "Naruto, why'd you do that?" "Because I can," replied Naruto simply. He walked to the stairs, leaving behind a protesting Takashi, and continued walking down until he reached the bottom of the stairs, and his face blushed overly red by the sight he's seeing now in the kitchen. The Kenjutsu female warrior was wearing an apron that covered her naked body, a black thong, and her purple hair was tied into a single ponytail. She was currently cooking something and didn't notice the blushing blonde until the latter slapped himself good. Seiko blushed when she noticed the blushes on Naruto's face. "Sorry about the outfit. My clothes were bloody and they're in the washer. This is all I can wear for now." Naruto snapped out of his daze. No, you look great. It's just, I wasn't expecting any of you ladies to be out of the shower already." He noticed Rei, in her pajamas, walking towards him and knew that she was drunk like Shizuka upstairs since her eyes were droopy and her speech was slurring. "Hey, Rei," greeted the Jinchuriki. The spear martial artist looked at him and asked, "Where is Takashi?" Naruto pointed up and the girl walked upward while stumbling at the same time, with the blonde ninja walking into the kitchen and grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge. He felt a pair of eyes staring at him and looked at Seiko, but he noticed her gaze was upon Tenkaichi and smiled. "Can't stop looking at my sword, huh?" asked Naruto, causing his female companion to blush a little. He drew the black blade with it facing downward, gesturing Seiko to grab the hilt. Seiko was surprised. "Really?" She saw Naruto nodded and so she extended her hand to wield the blade. The blonde sage was expecting something to happen, but he was surprised when his female counterpart grabbed the hilt and held it like nothing. Then he heard his partner say something. That's interesting." "What's interesting, Kurama?" asked Naruto mentally. "It seemed that your sword can be wielded by others if you give them permission to do so. Remember when the fat kid tried to pick up Tenkaichi, but couldn't? He didn't ask for your permission or you allowing him. For her, you gave her permission to wield the blade and nothing happened," replied the tailed fox with his Jinchuriki, nodding briefly as he watched the beauty in front of him admiring his weapon. "That is interesting. Do you think the old man kept this knowledge out or he didn't know it himself?" asked the whiskered ninja. The fox thought about this for a few moments before he replied. "I don't think that he knew. Remember he said he didn't forge his sword and he couldn't unlock the full potential of his weapon?" He received a mental yes from Naruto and continued, "He couldn't have known about it. We should take precautions and observe everything regarding the blade to fully understand it." "Sounds like a plan, Kurama. Thanks." And with that, Naruto ended the mental link with his partner just in time to hear Seiko's question. "This is a very fine sword. Does it have a name?" Naruto nodded. "Yeah, it's called Tenkaichi." He saw the purple hair smile and felt blood rushing to his face as he tries not to let his late sensei's pervert ways take over. "Damn you, pervy sage. Then he noticed that he was staring at her, making the latter female blush and fixed himself. Sorry about staring at you like that. It's just that you're really beautiful, obviously that you've made it to the top of the hottest women I've ever met list, said Naruto sheepishly while rubbing the back of his head. Now Seiko was blushing madly when she heard the compliment from the blonde and was thinking about the time that Naruto will tell her and the rest of the group about himself and his apparent ability to manipulate the wind and his abnormal speed. Also, she couldn't help feeling safe near the blonde swordsman and liked his kindness as his honesty and his physical appearance. He would be eye candy for girls around their age and perhaps women older than they are. Naruto held out his hand in front of Seiko, with the latter realizing that the former would like his blade back. Here you go. She gave the weapon back the ninja and watched him sheathe it. Then the duo heard footsteps from the stairs and looked to find Takashi carrying a passed-out and towel-covered Shizuka on his back. The ninja got close to the purple hair and whispered, "How long do you think he'll notice you?" "Not long," Seiko quickly replied with pride, and Naruto looking at her in surprise by her response, then smirked. The two continued to watch the apparent oblivious and tired Takashi head to the fridge and grabbed a bottle of water while heading back to the stairs until he noticed Naruto and the half-naked Seiko and covered his nose to stop it from bleeding. "Haha, you were right, Seiko. It didn't take him long," said Naruto, trying to stop himself to laugh more while Seiko smiled at the awe-stricken leader before continuing to cook. The ninja noticed Takashi still staring at Seiko and decided that he let him enjoy the show, so he walked to the living room and sat down with his eyes closed. Naruto's mindscape. "Fox, where are you? You and I have unfinished business to attend to," exclaimed Naruto. Soon, the tailed beast appeared, staring at his Jinchuriki with a mischievous grin on his face. "Yes, we do, but first," replied Kurama with Naruto waiting for him to continue, "change the place in here. It'd be better if we have a more appropriate training battleground." Naruto blinked for a few moments as he processed what the mighty tailed beast had just asked him before smiling. "Sure, and I couldn't agree with you more." The ninja closed his eyes and focused for a minute before opening his eyes as he takes in the new area that he just created. Vast lands of green open field with tall grass, trees that are taller than him, but shorter than Kurama. On his right, he finds a huge cave that was next to a waterfall and knew that this was perfect for his partner, speaking of which. "Wait a minute. Where is that big lug anyway?" asked a bewildered Naruto as he turned around, searching for his sparring partner. "Man, while I'm taking sightseeing, Kurama took the advantage to hide and is probably planning his attack by now. Why am I talking to myself like this?" He continued to search for the tailed beast until he noticed a shadow looming over him and looked up with his eyes bulged out anime style when the ninja saw his opponent free falling with his claws pointing at him. Naruto panicked frantically before leapt backwards in a considerable distance with the fox landed on the ground, kicking up dust. Kurama looked to his right when the dust cleared and found a seething Naruto with gritted teeth, staring at him and asked innocently, "What's with the look, Naruto? Are you kidding me with that, Kurama? You took advantage and tried to kill me just now. I thought we were friends?" replied Naruto frantically with his right arm pointing at the fox. The multi-tailed beast replied, "You should always be on your guard, Naruto, regardless of anything." The ninja took in the advice and admitted that he did let his guard down when he was looking around the new mindscape, and slipped into his frog kata stance with his partner smirking at the gesture and crouched. "This isn't like last time, Naruto. You caught me off guard, but that won't happen again." "That's where you're wrong, Kurama. It will happen again," said Naruto as yellow irises with toad-like pupils and an orange-reddish pigmentation around his eyes appeared. Kurama narrowed his eyes upon seeing the transformation, Sage Mode. He then saw his Jinchuriki draw Tenkaichi and charged at him. Naruto complied as he charged at the fox with his weapon ready and both opponents swung their sword and claw respectively when they got close. 10 minutes later, Naruto planted Tenkaichi into the ground, sat on the ground with his hands supporting him, panting slightly. He looks across from to see Kurama lying down, panting slightly as well. Both Jinchuriki and tailed beast had scratches, bruises respectively, with the latter deactivating his Sage Mode and his breathing got slightly hard after. Soon the duo started to laugh after one of the best sparring matches they've ever had until the blonde stopped. "That was a good workout, huh, Kurama?" asked Naruto smiling. Kurama scoffed. We could have gone a lot longer and you know it, Naruto. Hey, I can't afford to weaken myself in the outside world while I'm training in here, remarked the ninja. Naruto, my and your healing abilities can take care of that, replied Kurama, making the shinobi gulped as he just remembered his healing powers as well with the former side. Really, Naruto, you got to start remembering the important things. The Jinchuriki was about to say something, but he felt an alarm ringing inside his head. The Fuinjutsu outside the perimeter, it's been triggered. I got to check it out. He got up and said, Kurama, we'll continue this conversation another time. Naruto grabbing Tenkaichi and sheathed it, I'll be back. With that, the sage disappeared from the mindscape, leaving the fox to fall asleep in his new chambers inside the cave. Real world. His eyes opened suddenly and quickly rose where he heard Seiko upstairs. Naruto used his shinobi speed to get there and appeared behind both the swordswoman and the gun lover, startling them both. Naruto. Oh, man, good timing, said Kota before firing another round down the street level. What's happening? Asked a serious Naruto as he got closer to the balcony. Seiko handed him the binoculars and pointed at a house below across the street. The ninja looked through the binoculars and fixed his stare to the house where he saw Takashi grabbed a little girl and carried her on his back as he jumped on the fences, but found himself surrounded by a huge group of walkers. Quote, the sage took the binoculars away from his eyes and set them on the floor before he tightened his headband with Seiko and Kota noticing with the latter fired another round. Naruto? Asked Seiko. Naruto looks at her. Seiko, get ready to open the door and the fence for Takashi and the girl. Kota, you keep maintaining cover and whatever happens, don't let the others out of this apartment. Understand? He received reluctant nods from the duo before jumping off the balcony, free-falling to the street and leaving two teenagers with anime bulged-out eyes. The ninja channeled chakra to his feet and planted them into the wall, sticking to it before scaling downward and leapt into an open space, far from the large group of walkers. Okay. Naruto with Tenkaichi drawn in his right arm, sword arm, time to call their attention. He used his free arm and put his left index finger and thumb and whistled loudly. The sound echoed in the surrounding area, soon died out with the undead turning away from the duo on the fence and heading towards the origin of the sound. Who whistled? Whispered Takashi while carrying the girl. He looked to his right where he saw the blonde swordsman down the street. He's drawing their attention, so he can get back to the apartment. Hang on, okay? The girl nodded and the boy jumped off the fence and ran back to the fence with a small white dog following them. He discovered Seiko waiting by the fence and entered through the fence and to the door of the building. Meanwhile Naruto analyzed the huge group and discovered that the narrow street with the walls enclosed them and smiled as he channeled wind chakra into his blade and swung it horizontally, letting loose a blue crescent-like chakra. The edges of the energy cut the walls, leaving sharp marks on them as the attack make its way to the unsuspecting crowd of the undead, cutting through like paper with blood gushing and splattering on the floor. The chakra attack dissipated after cutting the last walker with Kota shocked out of his mind. Naruto looking at his sword, this sword will come a long way for me. After sheathing Tenkaichi and observing the massive pool of blood flooding the street in front of him, the ninja leapt on the wall and scaled up the wall with his chakra-imbued feet. When he got to the balcony and off the wall, he was grabbed by the arms and being shook like a rag doll again by the gun lover with stars in his eyes. Dude, how did you do that? You got to teach me that, asked Kota still shaking the ninja until Takashi and Seiko pried him off the blonde who fell to the ground. Both of Naruto's eyes was replaced by spirals as a result from the shaking. Rei joined the commotion along with the now awakened Shizuka and Saya after hearing Kota's proclamation. What happened to Naruto? Asked Rei while looking at him. Takashi replied while calming down Kota, who is the better question. He leveled his head to the gun lover who finally calmed down. Kota, said Saya fixing her glasses as she got closer to the former, why did you shake Naruto again? He did an awesome thing. He unleashed some sort of energy from his sword and it cut through the walkers like nothing. Then he walked on the walls like it's second nature, replied Kota. Naruto groaned, shaking his head and stood up while rubbing both of his arms from the grip of his overweight friend until he felt everyone's eyes on him. Why are you guys looking at me like that? First, your manipulation of the wind, your inhumane speed and now you can walk on walls as well manipulate some energy? I think it's time that you tell us about yourself, said Saya, glaring at the blonde. Naruto felt uncomfortable by the glare from the pink girl, soon noticing everyone staring at him as they wait for an answer. Naruto was thinking of an answer until he yawned and silently thanked the action. Sorry, guys, he faked a yawn as well stretch his arms to sell it, but I'm beat from the walker slaying and you guys still need rest. I'll explain everything, tomorrow. With that, the ninja walked past the group and went downstairs and slept on the floor with one of the couch pillows and Tenkaichi beside him. Meanwhile, the others were talking about the ninja's notion and agreed that they should sleep as well, with Shizuka sleeping with the young girl and the dog. Early morning, the next day. Naruto stirred in his sleep as he was having a nightmare about his defeat by the 10 tails until he felt a wet substance on his cheek. What's going on? He opened his eyes and turned his face to the left where a small white puppy standing with its tail wagging. The ninja sit upright in surprise as he stared at the small canine before smiling and petted it as well, standing up. He stretched his arms, legs and back, popping a few joints before grabbing Tenkaichi. He looked at the clock on the wall. 7 a.m., huh? The ninja looked around to find the nurse with the little girl and the genius still sleeping on separate couches and assumed that everyone else is asleep as well. Hee, I bet they don't mind me getting some fresh air. His nose picked an unfamiliar and uncomfortable scent. Realizing that he smells horrible, I should probably take a shower first. He grabbed a towel before entering into the bathroom, took off his clothes and enjoyed the heavenly touch of the shower. 5 minutes later he exited the room with his hair freshly dried with his clothes and headband on. Naruto went up the stairs and found Takashi on the floor, Rei and Seiko on the bed and Kota on the other side of the room on the floor as well. He quietly walked past them while putting on the flak jacket and opened the door without letting the canine out and closed it. Then slung his black sword over his right shoulder before channeling chakra to his feet and leapt high across the street to the building in front of him. Then he continued leaping across buildings as he explores the surrounding area. He jumped across another building until the former heard his partner calling him and stopped close to the edge. Kurama, what's up? I've been thinking about this world and the people's attire. I think you should change your ninja gear, replied the fox. Naruto cocked an eyebrow. What do you mean by that? There was nothing wrong with his ninja attire. Or is there? I mean that you should blend in with the people here. Your attire clearly makes you stand out from everybody, said Kurama, making the sage think about it. His ninja attire clearly projects unknown design, and with the world in its current state, they can see him as a major threat and will attack him if they get an opportunity. I think you have a good point, Kurama. Thanks, bud, said Naruto, receiving an approved growl from the fox. Looks like I have some shopping to do, can't believe I just said that. He leapt onto several buildings before stopping on a building that was across from a clothing store and a few walkers around. What a way to start the day. Hey, I just made a rhyme, hee. Naruto jumped off the building and landed in crouch while drawing Tenkaichi with its chain and the Uzumaki symbol dangling, making a small noise. The walkers turned their heads to the origin of the sound and started walking towards the smirking ninja. He pointed his sword at an overweight walker and said, "Let's dance, Tubby." As he said that, the ninja charged, swung his blade downward on the walker, splitting it in half. Then he swung upward for an overhead strike on another walker, taking its head and spun quick to kick the third walker that lunged at him, sending it to crash through the store's display window. He walked towards the last walker that was crawling towards due to having no legs and had a sad look as he watched the once alive person crawl towards him before holding Tenkaichi's blade downward with both hands on the hilt and thrust it through the walker's head. The sage sighed as he pulled the blade from the head with his sword arm, causing blood to flow beneath the skull. He swiftly flicked his sword to the right, causing a minor blood splatter on the street before walking over the body and to the store. The blonde ninja pulled out a kunai from his hip pouch in a reverse grip and readied his sword as he entered the building with his ninja senses on high alert. Okay, now where are the clothes section for the men? Asked Naruto to himself as he walked up the stairs that led to the second level where he found clothes for men. Bingo, as he put away the kunai and stabbed the Tenkaichi to the ground next to him to look for clothing that will compose his new attire. A few minutes passed by as Naruto set his ninja attire in front of him and said, "There we go. This should make me blend in with this world." He sported dark blue jeans, a black belt, a black t-shirt and an orange jacket while still sporting his sandals and headband. Also, he putted the hip pouch safely hidden under the jacket and grabbed a medium scroll, opened it with a fuinjutsu sealing in the center and put the ninja attire on it. Naruto made a few seals before the clothes disappeared in a puff of smoke, scrolled it up and put it inside the pouch. Lastly, he grabbed Tenkaichi and sprinted out of the store and jumped onto a building. The Jinchuriki finally made it back to the apartment and quietly opened the slide door, stepping inside and closed it. Okay, now I should make something too. He stopped when he smelled a tempting aroma coming from the kitchen and sprinted with a third of his speed, causing the window glass to break. Naruto found delicious plates of eggs, bacon, sausage, muffins and juins and was about to stuff them into his face until he felt something staring at him, so he turned his head to his left. He saw Seiko, Rei, Saya and Shizuka in their outfits, with slight modifications, staring at him with shock expressions, then turned his head to his right where Takashi, Koda and the young girl was staring at him with the same expression. Hi, guys. Good morning, said Naruto sheepishly. Hey, morning, Naruto. Nice clothes, replied Koda. Thanks, man, replied the ninja as he watched the chubby kid reaching for an bacon but was stopped when Saya hit his hand with a spoon. Ow, that hurts, Takagi, complained Koda, rubbing his hand while looking at the pink-haired girl. Yes, it should. So, don't start grabbing food yet. You wait until everyone is at the table, said Takagi picking up one of the plates with Seiko, Shizuka, and Rei did the same and walked over to a table with enough chairs for all of them, including the young girl. All right, everyone. Dig in, said Rei happily. Don't need to tell me twice, replied Naruto as he chowed on the eggs, bacon and sausages. Then he noticed the girl. What's your name? My name is Alice, replied the girl all cheery with everyone else smiled. Several minutes later, the group was sitting on their seats, feeling relaxed as their stomachs are filled with food that will help them survive a bit longer. Then Saya gave Shizuka a subtle nod and the doctor told the young girl to take a shower and pointed where the bathroom was located. As the girl was out of hearing distance and in the shower, everyone had their eyes on the blonde ninja who was chewing on a bacon when he saw the stares from everyone and swallowed it. Naruto sighed and asked, "What do you want to know?" "First, your ability to manipulate the wind and your speed," replied Saya. The sage nodded. "Well, I used my chakra to control the wind." He saw everyone giving him the, "What the hell are you talking about" look. "You don't know what that is, huh? I should have figured. What is this chakra?" asked Rei. Chakra is a combination of the body's physical energy and spiritual energy within every living being. Everybody in my world, Naruto gulped when he accidentally slipped the last two words, and everyone heard it. My world? Asked Takagi suspicious. Naruto lowered his head a little. I'm not from this world. He saw everyone's widen until the gun lover's eyes turned into huge stars with the latter popping the next question. Are you a superhuman? Asked the excited Hirano. The sage shook his head and continued. I guess you could say that, but I'm really not. You see, my people and I can use chakra to increase our strength, speed, endurance, stamina as well techniques. Takashi raised an eyebrow. Techniques? There are 3 types of skills that the ninja and I myself use in my world. Ninjutsu, Genjutsu and Taijutsu. The leader's eyes widened along with everyone and the stars in Koda's eyes got bigger. Taijutsu is basically hand-to-hand combat. Genjutsu is the field of using illusions to confuse opponents and ninjutsu requires us to use hand seals and chakra to perform supernatural feats as well manipulate the elements around us to gain advantage during battle like when I use the wind to blow away the walkers on the bridge. Naruto continued explaining, this wouldn't have been possible without the father of all ninja, the sage of the 6 paths. He defeated the most powerful demon in my world, the 10-tailed beast. The teenagers felt chills in their spines when they heard the name. The 10 Tails was said to be the creator of all life in my world, but its revival also meant the end of all life as well. The sage split the beast's chakra into 9 separate beings called the tailed beasts and gave them names. Shukaku, Matabi, Isobu, Son Goku, Kakuo, Seiken, Chomei, Yuki and lastly Kurama. He continued about the descendants of the 6 paths, the clans and formations of the hidden villages, the 4th Shinobi World War and his training with the 6 paths including his mission, heritage and status as Kurama's Jinchuriki. Everyone's minds were blown away when they heard of this revelation and had the same question, but Takagi beat them to it. Can you teach us how to use chakra? The Jinchuriki shook his head. No. You see, we were trained at a young age to develop our chakra pathways and chakra's circulatory system, making them stronger over time to use chakra properly. If you use chakra now, you die. So you're only going to be here for 2 months. Then you move on to another world to retrieve one of these sealing keys? Asked Koda, receiving a nod from the ninja. Yes, but don't worry. I'm keeping my promise to get you guys to a safe and secure facility, said Naruto. Everyone's brow was cocked when they heard the last few words. What do you mean, a safe and secure facility? This is safe for us, said Shizuka. This apartment is only temporary. We need to move to a much more secured place. How long do you think those things will barge through the doors? Asked the ninja. Takashi thought about it and knew that Naruto brought a good point, plus he and Rei need to find their parents, and with the ninja's help, they have a greater chance of success of finding them. He's right, everyone looked at Takashi. We need to get out of here and cross the river. Also, we need to find our parents. With that, the group unanimously agreed and stated to meet outside by the Humvee in 10 minutes. 20 minutes later, the group met by the Humvee with the girls putting the weapons inside the vehicle and Shizuka starting the engine, bringing it to life. Everyone climbed aboard and the blonde doctor stepped on the gas, drove through the fence with the gun lover giving a loud, woo. Meanwhile, Naruto was thinking to himself about how his friends took in the news and smiled to himself as he closed his eyes for a nap, not noticing Seiko looking at him, and a smile appeared on her face as well. Naruto's universe.
That's all for now. If you want to see next part, then please like this video and subscribe my channel. Thank you.